the coding. Is it actually better or is it worse?
I don't know, what do you think?
To learn the usual things?
Because now this
I think it's okay.
It's okay.
Okay. So Alex, do you want to start or
Just to say welcome or something.
All right. I can do it.
I don't know. Are we live on Facebook? Yes, it says like, hello everyone! Finally, I think we set up everything that we can start. Thank you for coming, WizardAmigos session. We have like some awesome guests today, and the opening will happen with Nora from WizardAmigos Taiwan, Taipei.
Yay, Taiwan!
Here you go.
Okay. So let's get started. So I am going to talk a little bit about WizardAmigos Taipei. Okay, let's try this click. Wow, it's so fun. Okay, yay, success. Okay, so I am a front-end developer. I currently working in QBX. I develop mobile apps with React Native right now. So I've been working in this industry for total in 3 years right now. Okay. So how I start to host WizardAmigos in Taipei is that I found this event on Meetup, and then back then I wasn't from a computer science background, so to go to a event that's too advanced is too intimidating for a person like me. So when I look at the description, that it says you welcome all skill levels and backgrounds are welcome. So I think it's more a friendly environment for me to start. So I decided to join. Okay. So at first we were in Mozilla Space in Taipei, and there were few people host the event. Click. I lost the mouse. Oh, nice. Okay. Nice. Okay. So after a few times I joined this meetup, I decided to start to host it, and these are the reasons I decided to do that. So you actually learn more from preparing presentation, because normally you go to an event, you just listen. Sometimes you fade out, or you cannot really focusing on the topic. So as time I prepare more presentation, I learn a lot from it. And so you have the ability to communicate with people in English, and more opportunities to meet people. Like they are really open-minded and like to learn new things. And also it's a new vision of education. So there are more and more people start to join us, because we are not like the traditional event that only advanced people can talk. We encourage people from all levels to share their experience. Okay. All right. So as I start, I write many articles to further presentation. these are just few, but I actually write many. So I start to prepare articles about JavaScript and so JavaScript and React. Yeah, and as we start this, it's because the description on Meetup is all in English. So even though it's in Taipei, there are many foreigners come here to the Meetup, and people are prepared to speak in English as they attend our event. So it's actually in Taipei, there are still not many places or many events like this that people are really ready to speak in or communicate with English. So this is something I'm really proud of, although it's really just Alex and Nina do all this. They travel around and start all the new spots around the world. But because I really feel we need to understand different cultures and live in different places to really understand people in different places to build a better world. I know it's the big word, but actually I do think that's what we should do, because we now have internet, and if we can get to know more about each other, then maybe we have a chance to really eliminate many huge problems in this world, like extremely poverty like that, or pollution. What happened?
But they don't have TV.
What happened?
No, more people.
Oh, more people are coming. Hi. Okay.
You guys are getting famous.
So it looks a bit like.
Okay.
Trick.
There's one chair here.
Yeah. We can.
This is one more chair here.
Alex, you move, and then everybody can move for one more spot, and then everything is good.
Let's just sit here. I'll just continue. Okay, so we started to have a whole month camp in Taipei last year. Yeah, that's the a lot of people came to join us in this whole month boot camp. Hey, click. So we did it totally for free, and we switched the places from university and Mozilla Space. Oh, that's one of the coolest things. It's a mobile device for you to mobile coding. So it works. That's so cool.
But you need the glasses. They're so close that you need to.
Yeah, so you need the glasses to augment your monitor.
Close, you cannot see if you don't have the glasses.
You can code everywhere. So cool. Okay. Because of the vision that we really need to, because there are so many informations written in English online, so we really need to learn English better.
Okay, so we want to say this one.
Bring the chair.
Cozy.
Right.
It's so cozy.
And we also make more friends to join us. For example, Alin, she is she's the founder of Remote Work in Taiwan. It's a group to promote the remote work style. So I think we are getting stronger, getting more people. Yeah, that's her. Yay! That's her. Okay. Is it weird?
It's a lovely picture.
Yeah, it's a lovely picture. Okay. And yeah, that's the other event that we did last year. We went to Ilan to visit a tech farm.
Automating farming.
Yeah, that's us. It's cold and
rain.
and raining. Yeah. So that's the farmer. He's a developer and also he's a farmer. So he invented the some widgets to help the automation of farming. So we came to visit him and try to like if we can cooperate with him. And later we did try to make a plan for applying a grant about agriculture with blockchain. But then we didn't get the grant, but we are looking for all the opportunities to cooperate with tech people. Okay, the vision of education. Yeah, so it's I really like to this kind of to host these events because I think we kind of need a new system of education because you need to learn something you really like. For example, when you learn coding, you learn something. For me, I like to interact with the user interface, so I do front-end stuff. Imagine if someone push you to do examination, to push you to like some football team and take exam, you wouldn't like that. So we try to do learn our own path, and I think that's the best way to learn something because you can arrange your schedule to learn different level of things, and we keep switching our places because we don't have money, and we hope people come for free.
Somebody's house.
It's somebody's house. Keep.
I think it's really a good idea.
Yeah, somebody's house. Yeah. Keep switching places to looking for the sponsors. Yeah, so we did get sponsored for 3 months. Okay, that's that's somewhere. And the other entrepreneur, he wants to start a business about remote worker. So we get kind of a little funding from him. Yeah, because he thinks we are a good group, so he like to sponsor us. Thank you, Ricky. But then after about 3 months, he changed his plan. So we didn't get funding anymore, but so we switch our places again. Yeah. Okay. So for self-learning and lifelong learning, it's, I think, because there are more and more like professions didn't exist like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So when you graduated from school, you need to learn completely new thing to adapt this society. So we think it's a must skill to try to learn to do self-learning and keep learning new things. That's us in Taipei every Monday.
Every week.
It's every week, but now it's every 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then so we plan to travel with members of WizardAmigos about 1.5 years, and they're in all country right now. We went to Japan for DEFCON 5 together. Yeah, that's us in the big screen. And also here in Thailand. Wow. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
It's very hard for me to, so you can be the connection to the next talk, which is Alin.
Which one? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you, Nora, for organizing, because what is the truth? We went to Taiwan like 3 years ago, and we just said like we want to meet the locals and organize like a little meetup. And then these lovely people came, and after we left, they just said we will continue meeting, and they organized this for 2 years already, like every Monday or every second Monday. So this is amazing. Sorry, what? Questions, yeah, Nora.
So you've been doing this for like 2 years. Did you get your employer maybe to sponsor, like give you a space? Like who bids as a conference room?
Here.
We
If you want to use this one.
Because I think that they probably won't be really interested.
we haven't thought about that. Yeah, maybe it will work out. Yeah, we should try that. Yeah.
My coin now is, I think.
Yeah, we have a sponsor from MyCoin right now, but we need to every talk we do, we need to somehow relate it to blockchain. Yeah, but I think it's a good start.
No, well, I mean, they can always offer maybe the space. Just the space, not the money.
Yeah, that'll be.
Yeah, usually they expect then something, that either that you are in their topic or that you promote them. It's like rarely people are open for just good.
Yeah. Yeah, we hope that.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Even though they could.
Well,
brand
so
themselves.
Maybe in the mic.
Yeah, I sorry, I walked in a little bit later, so I missed the beginning. I'm sorry. But is it so? Where did this start? Is it you guys from Berlin who started it, and then you took it over, took the fire off in Taipei, right? And there's other groups as well all over the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
The news going to Lagos and Nigeria.
Oh, okay.
yes, it's Alex and Nina start from Berlin, and then they start to travel around and start a new location over the world. So Taipei is one of the location, and then we have also in South Africa and also in India.
We have also one in Berlin, but this one is currently quite inactive.
Because the organizer that took it from us also started traveling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Works on remote and travel, so
Yeah, I think that's the point, right?
Yes.
Like,
So it's because of the
so
mission
that's the
mission
problem.
accomplished.
Once the organizer becomes like traveling digital nomad, then like fuck, the new organizer.
Yeah.
It is. I imagine it works like that.
But yeah, we might find a new one currently. If you know somebody in Berlin.
No, I don't know. I don't know people in Berlin. I'm sorry.
I was thinking maybe we can use the opportunity to just do a quick round of introduction, because we are so squeezed together that maybe it would be nice to just get to know each other. I mean, you get to know Nora, or maybe we can, and you will. Or you start, But just a quick, like, who are you, just to make a round.
Okay. So I'm Alin, and I'm backend engineer, and also team leader now. So I work for Luit. It's like a chat app. So I create a work remote in Taiwan group. So now already have almost 3,000 people. Yeah, and I will like a promotion work remotely in Taiwan. Yes.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Stefan King. I host the weekly Bitcoin Mixer in Chiang Mai every Thursday at group number 7. We have a mutual friend, as Jonathan Sobro. He introduced us. So that's why I'm here as well. I just saw also Griff at Food for Thought. So I know all the people who come back here every winter and like to make new friends. I'm community director at a local blockchain startup incubator. So it's called Yellow. I basically organize things for them and just connect people to each other. And I also writing a book about crypto, blockchain, entrepreneurship. So that's what I'm working on right now.
My name is Ran. I came to Chiang Mai 2 weeks ago. I'm a coder. I will be looking for other coder to communicate with, see what you're doing. I'm really into EOS blockchain. I know you are mostly Ethereum guys. But yeah, we like to communicate to see what we can do together.
Hi guys, I'm Fred. I did hardware wallet for the past year and a half about, and now I'm mostly focusing on blockchain compliance and automation using smart contract, company governance if you want. But interested in all things blockchains and smart contracts and so on.
Hello, I'm Anton, and I'm also from Taiwan, from Coolbits, and we're building hardware wallets and mainly developing the SDK for the JavaScript SDK for our hardware wallets. So we're trying to make it work with MetaMask right now. I think we can finish it like within this month. So it would be good if you guys can follow us, maybe on Twitter or something. So we, yeah, so you can know when that day comes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Anton TTC.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luca. I come from Italy, and I was in the first years of my work web developer, full stack, and but in the last 7 years I mostly work with C++, and for an Italian company we work on trading stocks, and in the last 3 years we focus on cryptocurrency trading and things like that.
Hello, I'm Cici. Actually, I'm a web designer. I'm coming here because John invited me, and I want to learn more new knowledge. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
This is how we all started.
Okay. Yeah. This is Chang. Yeah. I come from Taiwan also, but now based in Chiang Mai. But I'm a program developer also. But now I run in Polkadot project. Yeah. Now in test chain. Yeah.
Oh, building test chain
Yeah.
for Polkadot.
Yeah.
Kusama? No.
Yeah. Now Kusama. Yeah. That's still running. Yeah.
Nice.
And okay.
I love that we are colorful group. Blockchains. Non-blockchains.
It's very international.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Christoph. I just want to learn coding, so I'm completely new. And I'm interested in free software.
Free as in streets or free as in beer? As in speak.
As in beer, of course. What else? My name is Alex. I'm a JavaScript engineer, and I have my own company, and I'm working like with all kinds of clients. But for the last 3 years, mainly contracting with the Ethereum Foundation to build some developer tooling to help people build smart contracts. And yeah, on the side we're trying to organize stuff like WizardAmigos, but also others do much more than we. So yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. So we put this on back. Yeah, I can do the thing, and then let me just position, because then I think can continue. Okay, so yeah, my name is Nina. I'm originally from Slovenia. I was living in Berlin for some years, and then I became a nomad. But I started learning programming when I was 32. That was 6 years ago. So before that, I was like doing marketing and startup things. So if anyone wants to start, it's totally okay to start, even if you're older. and it's doable because like now for the last 3 years, I'm also a contractor with the Ethereum Foundation. I have a remote job. I'm doing front end and getting better each day. So it's really amazing that even without studies, you can actually become a developer. So if somebody is really thinking, just jump on it. It's doable. You just have to do it the same as you do any other thing that you learn in the language or like whatever we studied. It takes years and it takes time and it takes effort, but you get there. So if somebody needs help, I'm also, because it changed my life, I'm trying to promote this with others and help anyone who wants to also jump on this mission, because I know that you need like some hand to hold. So now we're gonna have Alin sharing the story about how to build a culture of remote work.
Yes.
So thank you. Do you want to put it on the?
I need a point.
Here. Here will be your. Hey, Griff.
I put the link in the Facebook.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Then you prepare this, but Griff, maybe just to say
Yeah.
to everyone. We just did like a introduction.
Oh, nice. Yeah, hey, I'm Griff Green. I work on Giveth, Common Stack, DAppNode, Ident 3, and way too many other projects. And am just like trying to change the way we do governance. That's like my main thing.
Do you like also want to just say hi, because we just did a round, so you will not know who we are, but we will know who.
It's recorded. You can check it later.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, I'm Lorelai, and I do decentralized conflict resolution and other sorts of team organization things for various blockchain projects. And yeah, hi, that's all. I'm excited to talk about token bonding curves.
Yeah, so you do perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we have Alin now to share how she's promoting the remote work culture in Taiwan. She started a group and like she will say more. So this one is a camera and this one is the PowerPoint. Can you Alex
link Facebook? I put.
So we booked a little bit of a too small room. So now we're like,
Do you have the link somewhere?
it's like this dance, you know, if you stand up, you don't get a chair.
Sorry? I mean, should we try to get the other room?
They don't have a TV.
Facebook.
The Facebook.
So yeah. No, last time we had fun space and it was like 8 people. So I was like, okay, maybe this time it will be also less people, but no. Obviously, this area is more popular.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You sent me.
This makes us more connected. So we can even. The sound is great. Really? That's luxury. Maybe Nora will want to see it. I have my little corner here on the bottom. Yeah, it's amazing. Let's just see. This is showing nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works.
Cool. And you can switch here with the. Yeah. Okay. So I can
I can.
You can use the mouse tools.
Okay.
I guess.
Oh.
It's nice.
Hello. This is my sharing. I was sharing how to build the culture in the remote team, because I work for a company with all the remote. What?
Can you move for one chair? Can maybe each move for one chair?
Oh, yeah. We can just scoot over.
Am I visible on the camera?
Sure.
Yeah. And
one more chair.
Here, we have it. We are yogi.
Yes.
Are we visible on the camera? Are we visible in the camera?
That's perfect. Just put a sign now outside. We're full. Oh, we got one more seat.
Another good sign.
Yeah.
Everybody has it.
Okay, that's much more outside.
We can give them the link to the live stream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start again. So my sharing is how to build a culture in a remote team, because as company, all member is working remotely. Also, like marketing and my boss, and we have an iOS engineer and Android engineer and backend engineer. We all live in different place. Okay.
Here.
Here. Oh.
Just with the...
Okay, so because before I have introduced myself, so I just pass this. And I create this Facebook group for worker remotely in Taiwan. So if someday you go to Taiwan and you want to find a friend, maybe you can join this group. Okay, so I will introduce how to build a culture like this. So first, if we want to build a remote team, we must have some people, right? So I think first, very important is which kind of people join us team, which kind of personality. So when I need to hire the people, I will have some interview. Okay, so I will ask her how to control your emotion and how to control your stress and how to control your time management. So I think this is the most important because you often stay alone. You must be to do something better than other people, because if you always figure out or something, it's hard. So we will choose which personality, and of course you need to have a coding skill or something. It must be okay. And also we will hide how to say this honesty, because if you hide your work, actually you didn't do anything, but you just didn't say, we hard to know. So we must have this personality. And sometimes because we will talk remotely or sometimes asynchronous, so you must have a good writing skill or something. Okay. So, and also we need your positive attitude, because if I am a team manager, so if I always need to check your statement, it's hard. So I hope you will report me. It's not I ask you. So, and we need to hire people you know how to teamwork, because some people maybe you have a very good coding skill, but you don't want to share your job. You just want to do by yourself. It's hard, because if you pending and you don't get help, it will always pending. Okay, so for the time, we my boss now in the US, so we have maybe 12 hours different, right? So also before I go to Japan, so its time is different. So but we have a meeting, so we must be consider everyone, because time is different. So if someone now stay in the US, so we team meeting will be the morning, but it's every people in the Asia, maybe it's afternoon. Okay, so every month, every week we have a team meeting, scrum meeting. Before we have a stand-up meeting, but we skip that because now we have a better workflow, so we don't need to think every day. So we will use this because before we talk, we have a time zone, right? So if I move to Japan, so this app will automatic update. So I will not miss my meeting. So every time I I will tell member if you want to book a meeting, always do this. Not just like a Slack message, because I will maybe sometimes I will in the Euro or something. So and also if you can see they have a button, you can switch the time zone. So that is very useful. And also have some tool you can choose maybe 2 or 3 place, and they will show like this. So it can help you choose the meeting time. Okay, this is accompanying as a workflow. So first, I will remind my team member, if you want to talk about jobs, you always need to create an issue. It's not just like a chat, because when we test the message in the chat, we don't know this for which issue. So I will tell them, if you want to talk something about job, you always need to talk in the issue. And also we will use like update your status. So like I am a team leader, but I also need a coding. So so I will tell the member, you need to always update the status, because I don't want to ask you, because you want the quiet, right? But I also have a responsibility to know your status. So I will tell them, you must be always at update status, and I will not borrow you. I will be quiet. Okay, so other things we also need a Slack, like we need a chat. It's not for work. Maybe I just chat to you, oh, some good restaurant or something, because if we always just talk job, we will not be a fan. Yes. So we still need a list, but for different targets. Okay. So, but sometimes if many messages here, so you can mute because you want focus. Okay. And even in the Slack, they have a bot. You can do like a stand-up meeting, just talk to the bot. Okay, so we have a lot of meetings, so we use Zoom because they can recordings. Because some people, if they can attend, they can watch the video later. And when we start a meeting, we must be stay in a very quiet place, because if it's very cold, it's not a good meeting quality. So yes, and sometimes it's hard. First item is hard, because I actually want to tell everyone turn on the camera, but some people, they say I didn't wear clothes or something. It's hard, but yeah.
Or my hair is.
Yeah, I didn't make out or something. Okay, so if we want to do the online meeting, we must have a good internet. So so before the meeting, you need to check your step. Okay, so I will use this website to check. And okay, I think running remote team most important is trust. Are you agree that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So how first thing, we always think you should trust me, but hard, right? You wonder if I don't know you, but how I can trust you. So first, we will use like Jira. I say we will also always update task status. So everybody you can see other people, what are he doing. So it's not like maybe he are sleeping or something. You are guest. So you must be have some information is public, so everybody can check. So of course, sometimes we have a team building, maybe like 3 months or 1 year once. And other else, we will spend a little time to chat or hang out together, just some dinner or something. And for the developer, we have some like a pull request. So we must be maintain the code quality. So we will list process. And we also have some sharing session, even it's coding or other things, tight control. Okay. And also because we have a few people already have a worker remotely experience very long time. For example, me, I work remotely, I think almost 5 years. So, but some people, it's first time work remotely. They didn't know which problem they have. So if we have a list mentor, if you have any problem, you can ask someone. They maybe have a same situation. Okay, so also this is why I create a group, Facebook group, because I know actually many people ask me many problems, but it's the same. So I think this group can share experience. If you are first time is working remotely, actually will you happen same problem. So it's like this group. And also you can share like job information. Yes. And because maybe my first job remotely is very hard to get, but now in Taiwan is more company they will like this. I think this year.
To save office costs.
Yeah, it's growing very fast. I can feel because many people will. So I get the offer and I have some question I want to ask you or something. I always saw this kind of message.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is it you say that it's more jobs available remote? Is it foreigners who are hiring Taiwanese, or is it local businesses that are open to hire also remotely, locally?
Actually have many also foreigner and also Taiwanese company also, but also like some company they want to switch to the work remotely, but they don't know and they were afraid. So also have many management just join this team to want to ask a question or do some research or something. And also we have a company from maybe Germany or Hong Kong. You know Hong Kong situation, so maybe they will come to Taiwan to fire employee or something. So many different countries actually.
And the other question?
No.
Okay. So I can take over from the floor. Yeah, I'm back. Thank you, Alin. I mean, this is really cool to know like how are things going on in Taiwan, because like Nora before said, they are working in a team locally and they wanted to come here to work remote, and we even wrote them a letter, like Ethereum Foundation team is inviting them, and now they could come for 2 weeks, work remotely, and they had to present and like had a task what to do here. So it's not so easy, obviously, for people who want to see their workers sitting around the table and to monitor them or something.
So in order for Taiwanese people to work remotely outside of the country, do they have to have some sort of official invitation that makes it easy to get visa or to get like the possibility to leave?
You mean like if somebody wants to work outside, like here in Taiwan, in Thailand?
Okay, for example, like we had someone who wanted to leave Iran because of like he felt that he and his partner were politically in danger, and he'd been like working with us coding for a few years just in the community. And so we were considering how to get like a letter from one of our Spanish companies that we work with to like, send an official letter of invitation from, from an official body in the other country so that his home country would accept him leaving to work remotely. And it kind of sounded similar to what you were saying of having to send an official letter to them.
This one was more, I think, they don't have problem with visa, at least to come to Thailand. It was more to convince boss that they can trust them, that they can work remote. Yeah, it's not for that officials. Yeah. It's for the in-company official. Yeah. But, yeah. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I can comment on that. Like, how did it start in your company? Was it the management who decided, like, I think there would be advantages to having a remote work culture, or was it that like first 1 or 2 or 3 developers to say, yeah, I want to go to Thailand and I'm gonna quit my job. If you don't let me go, and then he says, okay, you can work remotely. Like, which of these two was it?
Okay. For now, my current job, my company is kind of start before they just maybe 3 people. So, and after they grow up, maybe 5 people, and they get funding in Singapore. So 2 people must be staying in Singapore. So they start working remotely, and after that, they think it's okay. Still, is company still running smoothly. So why we need an office? This is why they change to the work remotely.
I don't understand the last part. But you had an office, but then
nobody come here because some people in Singapore, some people in the home. Mm-hmm. So they just think we don't need office.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, the boss was in Singapore.
No.
At the beginning.
Yeah, because funding.
Yeah, so they founded a company. They wanted workers in Taiwan, and then like they had to manage it online, and they figured out, it's actually working. Why would we even rent an office if we can just continue like that and save? And do they pay you less because of this, because you're remote, or do they pay you more because they save for the office costs?
I don't know, but I just go straight with my salary, so I don't know it's lower or high.
That's true. It's hard to compare because you don't know how much they would otherwise pay.
There's one other advantage as well, that for some companies, if you are a startup and you grow, then at some point you're gonna do customer support. And if you have a lot of customer support tickets, then you want to have people in customer support be in every time zone, at least cover every time zone, because then you can answer the tickets every 24 hours a day. So that's another reason they do it. Yeah.
And also is a concern if we want to run international marketing, we must have different people from other country, because we know culture. So, I have a member from Morocco, and he lives in the UK. So, we must have a member. It's not only Taiwanese, because we want it's international marketing.
That's also, if you see on a website in the project, if everybody's from the same country, I don't really trust them so easily. It's like, yeah, okay, this is too monoculture. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's good to have multiple cultures in one company.
Yeah. Our special mic.
Have you ever successfully convinced any boss to let their employees work remotely?
From the
Yeah, like,
classic style to the remote.
Yeah, what do you think we can like provide or like what can we have to talk our boss about? Maybe this is a new kind of working style, or maybe this is more productive. What would you say to a boss if you want to convince him, like, I want to work remote?
Actually, before I also stay in office for 5 years, and I work remotely 5 years. So I know this feeling. It's like before I also stay in some company. Like some people stay in office, some people work remotely, but it will be one problem. It's like because I say this must be some personality. Like you can do very good time management or something, but some people they not. But if a company like your boss, they will concerned. Maybe you okay. They know you trust. He trusts you, but some people they don't trust. So if they have a rule, this is for everyone. This is problem. So after that, I will always find a remote team.
But maybe from my experience, because we were collaborating with Alin before, and we also have Fiona now from Taiwan, and we didn't know if we can trust any of you because we didn't know each other before. But what I feel, one thing is maybe a personality, but another thing is if you set some kind of processes, then these people can follow these processes, and then everyone can, in a way, learn how to work remotely if they know which tools to use. And if you get them into this vibe.
At least one of the people has to really want it. You know, either the boss makes it company policy or the employee says, well, I want it this way, right? So it's like if you're both, if you have a boss who doesn't want to do it and you have someone who, an employee doesn't want to do it, then it's not going to work, right? Yeah, but to convince them, I don't know. Like they have to believe it, like they said, the trust, right?
Yeah, or you say, hey, I'm an asset, I leave if you don't allow me more freedom, and then, sorry, if they lose you, then somebody else will hire you.
Like I can I answer because I've worked for a lot of companies remotely, right? So you can also say I will take a pay cut, you know. So you say like I don't have to show my status online, like you just get my work. You know, and I will maybe respond, maybe not, but you know that I'm smart. I can do these things because we've been working together for a while. How about I take a 30% pay cut and you don't worry about what I get done or not because I will get it done, right? So, and then you think, well, 30% pay cut is bad for you, but actually no. Because if you can do what you want when you want to do it, when you feel like it, and not because it's time or you have to, right? Then your life becomes 10 times better. So 30% pay cut is good. You can do.
And one other thing that I noticed when I started working remote is like, you don't have to buy fancy clothes because you don't have to go out. You are basically in pajamas or in like cozy, sportsy stuff all day long, and you don't commute. And you cook at home, which is like super healthier and cheaper. If you always have to eat outside and like drink bubble teas and all this, it's yeah. So
something we could try is to suggest a trial. Say add Devazol. Basically, just suggest a trial and see how it goes. If they're not convinced, then you can revisit it. But that's how it worked for me in the past as well.
Okay. And this is actually cool. This is actually what they did now with this thing. They basically convinced the boss with like, hey, this is international community. We can connect better. We can promote the product. And they can see that they are actually productive. And they figured out like, wow, we do so much. They were working over the weekend also, but they could structure their day the way they wanted. So you could basically focus when you wanted to focus. Cool. I think this is like a topic that connects us all. So maybe we can continue even after, but we can learn now how, even if we don't have bosses that allow us this, and if we don't want to have bosses, how can we do good and finance ourselves with some alternative methods that these guys are researching? If you feel like sharing, this would be.
I mean, I was figured you would take the lead and I would just hang out. I did it last week.
We will have to squeeze you somehow here.
Yeah. Well, maybe just quick. How many people know about bonding curves, like token bonding curves? Because that's kind of the, yeah, it was first week. Last week. You never heard of a token bonding curve?
I know like very, very little.
So just like quick background on what a token bonding curve is. So if you have a share, like if you have a company and you have an ownership shares, you might say, hey, I want to create 100 shares in this company, right? And then if you want to sell shares in your company, you have to find someone to buy them. You have a two-sided market where, and this is every asset that you can ever think of, whether it's Amazon stock or gold and silver, there's always this market book, this order book, where you have to match a buyer and a seller. And that creates some issues, right? There's this liquidity issue. If you have a small company, you can't usually find out who's a good, like who wants to buy this asset from you. And so you might have an asset and the price is, $100 for this asset, but it's really not worth anything because you can't find someone to buy it from you, right? Token bonding curves are a new way of doing this with a one-sided market. Instead of issuing an ownership stock or an ownership asset, that again, basically any asset that represents ownership of something, right? Instead of issuing a set number of stock, you actually create a smart contract that will create or destroy stock on demand or whatever this financial instrument is. So you don't have to find another buyer. You actually just destroy the stock. And the price is determined by how much money is in the pot total. So when you buy it, you send money to a pot, right? And it creates a stock for you. And when you sell it, you send your stock to it and it gives you back the money that's in the collateral. So you don't have to find someone to buy it from you. The actual stock itself will be created or destroyed based off of the same supply and demand that you would expect.
So it's a dynamically increasing and decreasing supply, which I don't think there's any precedent for this in economic systems. So this is a really interesting merging of economics and blockchain that I think is opening up new opportunities for markets, which is a really, really interesting kind of niche area of the blockchain space. So I pulled up a couple of slides from our presentation here, and we can walk through a couple of the mechanisms of what makes the augmented bonding curve produce continuous funding. So as Griff mentioned, this provides sustainable funding or continuous funding for an open source project, for a community, or for whatever you decide to deploy it for. Augmented bonding curves have two phases. So there's a hatch phase, which is kind of initializing this pool of funds, or the crowdfunding this community pool, and then the open phase is when this curve is live to public and acts like this financial asset that Griff was just describing, where you can buy or sell from the curve.
Yeah, so the augmented bonding curve. So I see. So a basic bonding curve may or may not create an income stream for a company or whatever, right? But this is a crypto economic primitive that you can add and remove features from to make it provide some kind of service, right? Like just a basic bonding curve may not actually create a funding stream for anything, but we can take that and augment it, and we call this an augmented bonding curve, so that you actually can implement almost like a taxation system on the supply and demand that then creates funding for a public good.
So we'll walk through that right now, and it helps to kind of see the diagram up on the screen. So on the left-hand side, you have a community of people who come together. So this might be the WizardAmigos. We've all come together and we've decided that we would benefit from a community pool of funds, maybe to rent a space, maybe to buy lunch, maybe to pay speakers that come, whatever we decide as a community to use these funds for. So we decide to launch an augmented bonding curve, which you can see on the right side of the graph. So we put our funds into the bonding curve. We allocate our money into this communal pool, and we're issued tokens at the bottom. It's called the ABC token. So we receive a financial asset, a token in exchange, which denotes our membership in this community. And it's also good for two purposes. So when we put funds into the bonding curve, they're split between the blue pool, which is a collateral pool, which is basically just a pool of money backing the curve. And some of it also goes into a funding pool. So the funding pool is the money that we can allocate as a community towards whatever we decide, lunch or renting a space or paying people for showing up, whatever. So that token that we now hold is good for claim on the collateral. So if we burn the token back to the bonding curve, or we sell it back to the bonding curve, we reclaim some of the collateral, so we get some money back for that. Or we can use that token to govern the funding pool. So it also works as a vote within that community. Do you have anything to add on that? Or?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I could say that when we're doing this, what's really interesting is that we don't, and maybe it's a technical detail, but the curve doesn't exist until the hatch is over. So there's these two phases where, that's what we call the initialization of the curve. So there's kind of this first part where it's like, hey, community, let's come together and let's build an economy for ourselves. Let's build our own justification. Let's build an incentive alignment tool so that we can come together and support a public good, right? And in this case, it's education of like Ethereum and coding, code camps for cyber nomads, right? That's the cause. So everyone comes together and they throw money in a pot. What's really interesting is that you have the same effect that happens in normal market economies, like when someone issues a stock, right? So like when Amazon issued their stock, they sold 10% to the public and that public got $50 million worth of stock, right? But then there was other stock that was created, and that was able to be used for, aligning incentives within a company, right? Within Amazon itself. And so like you can give that stock to your employees. You can start doing really cool things with Amazon stock, because now everyone is aligned around supporting the cause of Amazon. Problem is you can't do that for a hot dog stand down the street, because no one would buy it and there'd be liquidity issues. And that's why the SEC and the securities regulatory framework is needed, because like it's too many scams and there's too many issues with two-sided markets being able to do this stuff. But here we can actually create a financial asset that can represent a community coming around to provide a public good, and as opposed to promoting a business. And that public good, even if it's not like really popular, right? You don't have to worry about a lack of liquidity for the token that represents the community that's providing the public good.
What is liquidity?
Liquidity.
I'm sorry, but we're like I'm financially illiterate, so I need your help.
So I was actually going to jump in and explain liquidity. So this is ultimately what the bonding curve solves. So liquidity means the ease of getting from one currency to another. So, I mean, the Canadian dollar to the US dollar is very liquid. There are lots of people that want to buy on both sides and sell on both sides. So it's easy to buy, it's easy to sell. It's like Bitcoin. There's a lot of buyers, there's a lot of sellers. So on exchange, there are very thick order books. There are lots of people that want to buy, there are lots of people that want to sell. So you have liquidity to get in and out of Bitcoin. But for most cryptocurrencies that exist today, probably 99% of them, they're very, very, very low used coins. There aren't a lot of people looking to buy, looking to sell, so they have very thin order books. So there's not a lot of liquidity. If I want to sell 10,000 of this tiny token, nobody wants to buy it. You get all sorts of volatility issues. So when you if I tried to sell 1 million tokens and no one wants to buy it, that just sits on the order books and it massively manipulates the price of that token. So if I say I'm going to sell 1 million tokens at $1,000 each and nobody wants to buy it, then the price of that coin goes to match that. So you can create pump and dump scenarios. You can create all sorts of issues with low liquidity coins, and that's
what's going on right now.
Exactly.
On exchanges, you get like fake buy walls, sell walls, and everything. The
Yes.
token bonding curve defines already what's going to go. If you want to sell, you're going to end up there on the curve. If you want to buy, you're going to end up there.
Exactly.
There's infinite liquidity. There is no order book. And what's really interesting, like, Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world, right? That's bullshit. Like, if he tried to sell all of his stock, it wouldn't be worth $130 billion or whatever. Who knows what it'd be worth? Actually, no one knows how much his stock is worth.
Determine the price.
So with a bonding curve, if Jeff Bezos wanted to sell all of his stock, he would know exactly how much it's worth because it's priced algorithmically. There's an equation that's in the smart contract. If Amazon stock was based off of a token bonding curve, he wouldn't have to find someone to sell to. There'd be a bunch of collateral in the token bonding curve, and he would know that if he pushes the sell button, how much money he would get for all of his stock. And it would be because there's an equation in there that says if there is this much collateral in the pool, then the millionth and 10 token is worth this, the millionth and 9 token is worth this, the million and 8 token is worth this, and every token that exists has a price.
And it has to be different in each case. Like, how do you determine the algorithm for that price?
That's upon issuance. So when you set the smart contract and deploy it, it's that way forever. So
That's when you define the curve, essentially.
yeah, it's when you define the curve.
Can I ask one thing?
Yeah.
So there's two ways that the price can move. Like, right, it is either because people start bidding more on it because there's a secondary market, or that's not possible. You only interact with the contract and the collateral.
A secondary market is possible. For our deployments, what we're really excited about is iterating on this stuff and keeping the scope as small as possible. So we're making the token non-transferable, which would make secondary markets sort of difficult, just so we can experiment and start. But honestly, secondary markets provide us another use case for the token, so that's usually a good thing. But it's debatable, of course. Do you have anything to say on secondary markets?
So the people who do the governance, like who control the pod for like hiring a meetup space and whatever, if they take money out of the pot, then the amount of collateral goes down, and that also influences the price of the token, right?
Yes and no. So in a normal bonding curve, yes. What the deployments that exist right now, for the most part, that are actually active and people are using on Ethereum, a lot of them have this thing that they call a tap, where a certain amount of money every month will go to this group. And of course, it's a continuous slow drip, right? So there's a slow drip of collateral that's being allocated for the controllers to use. In our system, we don't do that. The money that's in the collateral is in the collateral. And we have a second pot where money builds up. And the people who have tokens, there's no change in collateral by any other means of them buying or selling the token. So we have two pots. There's the token with the collateral pool, and then there's the funding pool that the token gets to control.
Buying or selling the token out of the economy, right? Because internal sales would not affect the collateral pool.
Internal sales? There is no...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. So, yes, a secondary market wouldn't affect the collateral pool. If they just buy and sell outside, then that's fine. But that's cool because that creates, if there's a secondary market, then someone needs to buy these tokens from the bonding curve and fill up the order books. So that actually creates a use case for the token. So even though you'd be like, oh no, now they're not using the bonding curve, which we have this exit tax, which creates more money for the funding pool. Sorry, exit tribute.
We'll go into in the next.
Yeah.
Alex has a question.
So if there's a secondary market, so people could also sell and buy to each other instead of to the contract, would it make sense that the community has some parameters that they can tweak the curves to maybe influence the secondary market if they wanted? I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but I imagine there could be scenarios where this would be interesting.
You could definitely have governance mechanisms that allow for dynamic curve behavior in response to secondary markets, but I think that's like we're trying to start very minimum viable product with this. We're trying to limit the scope of this as much as possible because the design space is very, very, very broad on these. You could have many different mechanisms. You could have governance processes that can affect these to upgrade these with future information. But for the beginning, we're kind of excluding even secondary markets from just to limit the scope of what we may come across in the design of these systems. Any other questions, or I can move on to, this is still the hatch phase, as Griff mentioned. This is when we put money together, we decide how this is going to work. And then, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
After that, once you've defined it, that's when you post-hatch.
Right.
Yes.
So post-hatch, we go into the open phase. So the open phase is where the public can now, so everybody can buy in. So now we as a community have pooled our money. The curve has been launched. And then we say to the wider crypto and blockchain community, hey, we are WizardAmigos. We are code camps for cyber nomads. And if you think we're providing value, feel free to buy our token. This is now open to everybody. So someone may have, done a course last year, or they see useful products coming out of this community, and they say, I want to provide those people capital to keep doing what they're doing. And I want this value aligns them with your group because now they're also committed to seeing you succeed because they hold an asset that will go up in value if you continue producing more value. So they are not only contributing capital through financial contributions, they may contribute time contributions. You as a community could decide to allocate tokens for people who donate space, for example. If you ask your company, or I don't know who mentioned that earlier, if they offered a space for you to run a meetup, you could say, okay, well, we'll give you 100 tokens in recognition that you are helping us. So it's another way to align without giving them money and without asking them for money. You can align contributions of finances or of time or of any resources towards WizardAmigos.
And at that moment, it almost exactly is like giving somebody shares of your company, right?
In a sense.
Just that they don't have any voting rights.
I mean, they would through the governance protocol of the token, yeah.
Yeah, if anything, a feature that we'd like to see in the future, again, like we're trying to really cut scope and not make anything complicated. Like our goal is to build something really basic and let other people have fun with complications. And yeah, we'll talk about CAD and the modeling software that we're using, which is really cool and will allow people to experiment. But another cool thing I'd like to see is where you can give people governance tokens, but they can't get the money out of the curve, right? So now you're basically creating tokens that don't change the price, but do give governance. And like if someone, instead of like buying the token from the collateral pool, they instead just donate directly to the funding pool, right? I would love to give them governance rights over the funding pool, but since they didn't contribute collateral, we don't want to dilute the other people who are more in it for potentially a speculative situation, or they also didn't consent to that. But obviously, this group should have governance rights too.
Collateral is money that you put in?
Collateral is anything backing a financial asset, right? So like if you get a mortgage on your house, the house's title is collateral for the mortgage, right? So they give you money and you give them title to the house, and that's the collateral.
And in this example, it would be?
In this example, it would be the money, yeah, the money that's in the curve. Yeah, so there's kind of there's a two-token system. So we like to use a stable coin on the internals. So like when people buy tokens, let's just say they're using DAI, they send DAI into the token bonding curve, and in the open phase, that will all go to the collateral pool, and then they will get tokens, right? And the funding pool also has DAI in it, but then that DAI will, when you want to use that DAI to do work, to pay for a speaker's plane ticket to come give a speech or something, right? They will actually end up getting tokens out of the bonding curve. So the funding pool has DAI, and then you put that in escrow, and then they say, hey, look, here's the receipt for my ticket. And then at that moment, you send the DAI into the bonding curve and give them tokens. So they have the stability of DAI, but you have the control of your external economy, and you can give governance rights to people who are doing work, right? And then of course they can choose right away, oh, I actually don't want the token, I want to send it back to DAI, right? And then I get the DAI.
So essentially, we're trying to maximize the choice of the people interacting in this economy. If you're doing work in this economy, you can get paid in WizardAmigos token, or you can get paid in DAI. And DAI obviously would be more useful for going out and paying your rent, but WizardAmigo token would be if you want to grow your influence in this community. And perhaps there are certain perks. If you have over 10,000 WizardAmigo tokens, you get to come to the free conference every year or something. You can do different things to align the incentives in your community. So when we get into the open phase, this is where it gets really exciting with the continuous funding. So we can see on the left-hand side, if you're going up the graph, as there are more and more people, as the WizardAmigos community grows, more and more people come in, the price goes up because there are more people interacting with the token. So you have this pressure where if the price of your WizardAmigos tokens go up, you might want to sell some and take some profit, maybe pay your rent or buy dinner. So you start selling, but as you sell, the price of the token goes down, which is a problem with most bonding curves. But with the augmented bonding curve, we address this because eventually, if you are the last person holding WizardAmigos token, on the way out, everybody else has paid this exit tribute. So when you sell WizardAmigos token, you pay a small tax, like 5% or 10%, where funds go from the collateral pool into the funding pool. So by the time you get to, if you're the last person holding WizardAmigos token, you have all of the governance over this communal pool of funds. So you'll have this opposing buy pressure of more people who want to join the community to govern those funds. So in a traditional token bonding curve, you just have this race to exit. And if you're the last person in, you're holding the bag with all those tokens. But when we give the token a second purpose in governing the funding pool, which is slowly accumulating funds as people are exiting, you have an opposing buy pressure. So you have this interplay between the buy and the sell pressure here, the red arrows and the green arrows, and it keeps the volatility of the token within some acceptable range. And that volatility is generating continuous funding through this exit tribute. So essentially, WizardAmigos economy will be generating funds on a continual basis just by people buying and selling the token in response to these forces. So that's kind of the interesting thing about the augmented bonding curve that takes it a level beyond. And this is just one mechanism as well. This is, we've just implemented this exit tribute on when you sell the WizardAmigos token, and that can basically turn into regular funding for the group. So to recap quickly, we can kind of look at the economy of the augmented bonding curve as a separate economy. So this is within the circle. The outside economy is outside the circle. So you have capital coming in, being split between a funding pool and a collateral pool. Funds from the funding pool go to pay for proposals, which produces value within this community. And you also have exiting capital. When people sell the coin, some of this collateral goes out to the holder and some of it goes into the funding pool, which creates this circular regenerative economy. Yeah, question?
Does the price of the open phase, so after the hatching phase, start at the same price that the hatching phase was conducted at?
So, did you want to take this one?
I mean, I can. I mean, I think.
Yeah,
actually
this
just
is
going
actually a
into the
great.
simulation
Yeah,
will-
we unfortunately this is just the screenshot. So you can see here, this was a simulation we put together for the augmented bonding curve. So on the left hand side, these are some of the parameters you can set when deciding your curve. So you can see on the second one and the third one are actually the hatch price and the post hatch price. So you can actually determine this in the initialization of your curve. So in this scenario, we have the hatch price is at 10 cents. So when we come together as a community and say, let's pool our funds, essentially we get tokens at 10 cents. When the hatch ends and the open phase begins, the tokens start at 30 cents. And then there is market activity beyond that. So if people buy more, it may go up from 30 cents. And if people sell tokens, it may go down from 30 cents. Essentially, you have this kind of mathematic value creation. And this is essentially what Griff mentioned with Amazon, right? Amazon went to the SEC. They said, we want to issue X million stock. They said, okay, it will be valued at this much. And poof, like a financial asset was created. And there's a lot of value that's created that was not there before. So we have already these kind of like magical, financial assets. And this is just turning them into an algorithmic property that we can use in a decentralized environment.
The reason the hatch price is less than the post-hatch price is because they're bulk buying into the bonding curve. So you have a whole bunch of people all getting the same price, but each token that they get actually has a different price. You can kind of think of each token having an order, right? The first token is going to be almost free, and that last token is going to be 30 cents. And the average price of all of the tokens that were purchased is 10 cents. And so because everyone's coming in at this together and bulk ordering these tokens, they all get the average price.
Yes, so is the curve then determined by the relation between the hatch price and the post-hatch price? Because I see here you can set them deliberately, but then the hatch price has to be somewhat of a mean of the curve until the post-hatch price.
Yeah, so these are the parameters. Actually, it's just the first three and the hatch raise that really affect the shape of the curve. So you can see the percentage of the hatch that goes to the funding pool. So it's basically like the collateral that ends up in the bonding curve, because the amount that's raised, actually only some of it goes to the bonding curve, right? So if you raise, in this case, $3 million, and you have a hatch, the hatch tribute is set to 35%. Man, it was an old screenshot. We named this variable. But then, oh man, math is hard. I guess you'll have about $2 million. You'll have about $2 million in the collateral pool, right? Oh yeah, there we go. So
this is when you run the simulation. This is the output that it will show you.
Yeah. So the funds generated from the raise, $1.05 million went into the funding pool. So the collateral amount ends up being $2 million, and that determines the price of the last token. How much money is there?
You buy the curve up until to a point, and that's where you're supposed to touch.
Yeah, and so what's cool is you can pick which variable you want to be free, right? So you could say, hey, we don't know what the final price is going to be. It depends on, you could set that as like as a parameter, or you can set, we don't know how much money is going into the collateral pool, right? And like you kind of get to pick the variable that you want to work with. And so I think the one that makes sense though is how much money do we raise? And then the curve is drawn based off of how much money you raise. The exact curve ends up being, so when you do the hatch, the curve doesn't exist, right? It's actually determined when you figure out how much money is going to the collateral pool, and you make it fit between the price that you say people are buying the tokens for and the final price, because I think that's most comfortable for people.
Can I just ask something? So sometimes you're talking about the curve as like how will you set the price, but sometimes that you pay into the curve. So sometimes I understand it as a smart contract, but sometimes as a price distribution throughout time.
Well, it's not, well, it is, I guess it is throughout time, but it's both, right? So it's a smart contract and with rules. And the rules are every token, if the collateral has this much in it, then the price of the token is this. And so as people buy and sell out of the curve, then they're taking collateral out or adding collateral in, and that changes the price.
Why do we call it a curve if it's a contract?
Well, because the contract has an equation for a curve inside of it.
Okay, just because it's confusing in my head. Kind of.
Yeah.
So it's a contract with a certain set of rules
Mhm.
that depend on a curve, or like.
Yeah, that has
are
an
defined
equation.
in the-
The curve is defined inside, and the curve to because we're not the first people to use token bonding curves. A lot of these Ponzi schemes like FOMO 3D, proof of weak hands, they're actually using bonding curves, but they design their curves so that the price increases as the collateral increases, right? So that gives it that Ponzi effect where it's like, oh my God, I need to buy more. I keep making more profits. I need to buy more, right? We actually design it the other way. So it's not like, doesn't have that Ponzi addiction. It's more like it actually slows people down. As the price increases, it increases at a decreasing rate. So as the pot gets bigger, you have less opportunity for profit. And so you start saying, oh, actually, maybe I shouldn't buy into this curve. There's not as much opportunity here. And that's because our purpose is actually to create alignment of incentives for funding public goods. So you can think of it like charity. Yeah.
That's the liquidity thing. Can I ask about that? So it's like it feels almost when you explain that there you always have a price because there's no market trading, no order book problems, right? Then it's like, oh, that sounds like a free lunch, right? Like I get to have a really quality high financial asset for small causes, right? And then where does what price do I pay for that extra flexibility, right? Is it the fact that stablecoin collateral has to be locked up and that money cannot be used for anything else? That is the only drawback? There's other drawbacks too. Okay.
So again, the purpose of this is to fund public goods. So we have the exit tribute, and every time that you, is it this one? No. Well, yeah, this one. So if you buy a token and it costs 50 cents, and the exit tribute is 10%, you're buying at a loss. It's going to, if you sold it right away, you'd only get 45 cents back, right? And so this is because we're not trying, this isn't about like making money. Like that's something, that's a tool that's in our toolkit, but the goal is to align incentives around funding public goods. Because if you have WizardAmigos, right? And like, okay, I want to like support WizardAmigos. I just donate to you guys and I get nothing in return, right? Like I'm in the economic realm, I'm taking a huge hit, 100% loss. Of course, I'm a multifaceted human being. I have values that are outside of the economic realm, and that's why I make this donation, right? But I have to fight the economic disincentive to donate, right? And if instead WizardAmigos is a token bonding curve, and I want to support WizardAmigos, not only do I donate and get a financial asset in return, but now I can also use that financial asset to have governance power over how the funds that have been raised through this economy are spent. And the real magic here, and I think it's something that people kind of forget about, is value creation. The fact is we are tokenizing this shared ownership over a pot. And when you when Amazon created their stock, right, they sold 10% to the public for $50 million. So $50 million came in, and then they created $50 million worth of Amazon stock for those people. But then they also created $450 million for themselves, right? Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world because, well, he got 45% of all Amazon stock that was just created out of nothing, right? It's economic expansion, right? In the economic realm, that financial asset did not exist. And so now that financial asset was just created out of nothing. $450 million. Create out of nothing. Yeah. It what?
It became liquid.
Yeah.
That adds, like, this is some. This is something I actually only learned since I got interested in the token stuff. But the fact that something becomes tradable actually makes it twice as much valuable. Something like that. That is the reason that real estate prices are so high in many big cities in the world, because rich people from other countries, they don't really know what to invest in right now, so they just buy apartments in London, right? And so they are using it as a savings account. And the fact that that house is not just a house, but also a savings account, is like it financializes this house. That is what makes it more valuable. That's why the price is so high. So now you can get to do this at a smaller scale. You can that's the Amazon example really makes sense. Like suddenly the whole thing is created out of nothing. The value was already there. It was just not really visible because you couldn't buy and sell it. I really like this. Yeah, this is.
And what's exciting to me about this is now we can start using the fact. So in our normal economy, public goods don't have value, and that's really sad. In the economic realm, if you like a clean river is just going to be exploited because there's no cost. There's no quantification of the value of that river. Now I'm not going to pretend that this tokenizes a river, but what it can tokenize and give value to is the people who care about that river uniting together to actually keep it clean. And so now we can create a financial asset that will align incentives to support cleaning a river or support opening libraries. And really what excites me is basically any government, anything a government does is like their justification. A government's justification is to support public goods, right? Because market-based economies don't have any support for common goods. They exploit common goods. They have to. It's external to the economy. There's no value for contributions to common goods. And that means there's no punishment for destroying common goods. So if we can actually start creating, instead of trying to create a business model to support a public good, we can create an economy where there's an alignment of incentives to support the public good. And to bootstrap that economy, we create a financial asset that then can be used to align incentives where it didn't exist before.
So I guess I can go on to explain a bit more about the simulation. How much time do we have left, actually? So you can cut us off at any point. Yeah.
Me too. I can just check who is next and ask.
Sure. Yeah, because we can go on about this stuff all day. So if you like, just yeah.
How much have you guys pushed out already?
Right now we're in fundraising, so we've done a lot of R&D. So we've been working with a firm called Block Science, who does very, very robust R&D and token engineering design. So we've done a lot of the design work. We've been working with a new tool called CAD, which is a simulation tool for complex adaptive systems. So basically, like think like AutoCAD or MATLAB, but for crypto networks. So you can program agent-based simulations, and you can figure out, how, if you were to launch an augmented bonding curve with, certain governance mechanisms, how would those systems potentially react when you launch them? So we've been doing a lot of that kind of testing. We haven't done a single line of code.
But the product. So
actually, that's not true.
Yeah, that's not true at all.
What you're talking about, like the token bonding curve, is something that anyone can implement. You can get smart contract. The product that you're building, is that something to deploy token bonding curve or augmented token bonding curve?
Yeah. So what we are hoping to build, or what we are going to build, is a library of components. So we want to build like very generic, well documented, easy to fork and customize augmented bonding curves. So we've done, actually, I misspoke earlier. We've done a lot of hacking, a few different hackathons. So we do have some early code around augmented bonding curves, conviction voting, and a couple of the other modules of the common stack. And there's also been other teams that have seen these ideas and started hacking on them on their own. So there's a couple of resources we can definitely provide. I know that's something Alex was really looking forward to do, is to dive into some of the code eventually. So we can definitely provide some resources on other people who've been hacking on these and similar concepts.
I want to talk about why token bonding curves and simulation is so exciting, because when we're talking about two-sided markets, right, and we don't know what the price of Amazon stock is, right? Or sorry, Jeff Bezos doesn't know how much his Amazon stock is worth. What's interesting is that with a token bonding curve, because you can explicitly say this is how much each token is worth, you can start doing really interesting modeling, and you can model agent-based behavior way better than you can in an open economy with a two-sided market. So if you have this, in a normal economy, modeling is almost worthless. It's just not useful because you have a couple things. You have a regulatory agency, right, that controls what you can and cannot do in that economy. But really, like, as long as they don't see it, you can do anything. You can bribe them, right? There's all sorts of ways to break the rules that the regulatory agency is setting inside of that open economy. And once more, is you have no idea how different agents behavior, because we're talking modeling, agent lingo, right? Human behavior. You have no idea when someone does something in that enters or exits the economy, you have no idea how that will affect the price. But with a token bonding curve and a one-sided market in a crypto economic economy, there is no regulatory agency. There's just the code. So you know exactly what every agent can do. It's only whatever the code says. That's the only thing you can do in the economy. And with the bonding curve, now you know how every agent's behavior in aggregate, like one at a time, will affect the price. So you can actually say, okay, if these like token holders do this, and we have all of these different actions mapped out of everything that we could think of them doing, right? And we make it randomized and we run a simulation, we'll know what the price is at the end. If in a two-sided market, you can't know what the price is because you don't know what the liquidity would be, right? And so you don't know what the exchange rates will be. But here you can take a bunch of agents, you can run Monte Carlo simulations, you can run all the like simulation magic, and you can end up with realistic modeling over what different people's behavior will be. If they're losing a lot of money, making a lot of money, they'll sell more, they'll buy more. That you can actually build economic simulations, and now we can design robust economies like we design bridges. And this is really exciting because, like, especially in the crypto world, we are creating public infrastructure. And you don't just go out and build a bridge and just be like, yeah, let's see how it goes. Let's get some materials out here. We'll start building. Oh yeah, okay, bridge is done. No, man, you put that shit in a computer and you simulate it, and you take all of the modeling that's been done in the past and all the experience that you have. Like, I don't know, have you guys seen the Tacoma Narrows Bridge when it goes all like loopy-doopy, right? Like, okay, guess what? Wind resonance is going to be in the models that you have when you're building these bridges. You're going to take all of the learnings from previous bridges, you're going to start building the bridge in the computer, and you're going to size the materials so that it works. In fact, my sister's a structural engineer, and she was telling me that when they're building buildings, they actually choose where the weak points are. They say, this is where the building will fail in an earthquake, right? Like if massive, the thing's only built to withstand a 10.0 earthquake. But if the 10.0 earthquake happens, it will fail here, and we have these safeguards around it. Like, what if you could do that to an economy? And be like, the whole thing goes to shit, and it's going to fail. It's going to fail right here, and these are the safeguards we're going to put around it. I mean, this is like the beginning. I don't know. For me, I'm really excited. I'm inspired. I feel like we're the crypto economy and token engineering is really starting to take off, and it's a huge opportunity for us as a society to advance beyond the normal controls that we live under in these economies. And that's kind of the what drives us to do what we do with the Common Stack. And yeah, I don't know.
So I think that's the answer to the question. Is we're not jumping straight into code and implementing these systems. We're doing a lot of research and development on the design and simulation of these systems. And then we just want to provide code specs and useful components for other people to experiment on using the token engineering design methodology frameworks that we're developing at the Common Stack.
Do these simulations also include motivation of actors? Because when Griff before mentioned like donations, I know that usually people also don't donate just because they want to donate. They want something back, either like some name, like some marketing or whatever. So there is never a free lunch. So I'm just wondering if this is also included in the simulation.
Yeah, so actually we have another, this was the bonding curve simulation. We have another Jupyter notebook on conviction voting, and you can actually use behavioral models that have hidden preferences of agents in the system. So you can, these can be dynamic or they can be set as assumptions at the beginning of the simulation. And I can drop a couple of links into the Telegram chat perhaps, and you guys can check out some of the agent behavior modeling, but we can have hidden preferences of the agents in the system. They may prefer, proposals over the other. For example, if I'm one of the WizardAmigos, I hold this token and my preference is to use the bigger room. That's my hidden preference, but you can actually build those preferences into the model that they're not state-held information on a blockchain, because obviously that's not publicly known, but it's a hidden agent choice. So you can have behavioral models of agent preferences in these simulations as well. Yeah.
And actually, I was going to say that you had asked like, what are we actually building? One of the I don't know, design parameters or values that we have is actual decentralization. So we're not building a platform. We don't want to build a platform for people to decentralize onto, right? Like we're actually just building a code base. We're building a code base. We're going to make deployments. People can fork our code base and use it to deploy their own things. We're going to have lots of walkthroughs. Another piece of this is software, but it's software for communities. And to think that software is just going to magically solve problems is ridiculous. I've seen it firsthand in many projects. You actually also have to have a cultural playbook and have like advise people on how to build communities that work with the technology that you're providing. So that's another piece of the what you would fork, and that's what we're building. We're building the modeling software so you can make wise changes to the code. So like if you want to change something, you change it first in the model, you simulate it, see if that will work, validate your design, which is something we don't do in crypto, but we should. So you validate your designs, and then you can fork the code, change the code to fit the designs that you want. But then also we're trying to make sure that there are like clear like cultural expectations about how do you build a community that works with this software, and things to consider following like Elinor Ostrom's rules of the Commons and various other people that have been influential like Michelle Bowens and other guys.
But your point there just reminded me of a somewhat obtuse question that was arose for me, which is like, do you think it's possible that people who have been designers of pre-crypto economies have also looked at what the weak points are strategically and made safeguards around when those economies are going to fail and how they're going to fail, and like, is it possible that they've just made safeguards that didn't protect everyone but that like protected themselves, and if so, like how do we avoid repeating that behavior, and how do we make sure that that said safeguards are equitable and actually benefit the entire community?
Most safeguards for these, of course, they think about what could go wrong and design things that will solve those problems. And in those designs are like, yeah, guess what? We have a board of directors of the Federal Reserve, and they will decide, they have the power to inflate the currency whenever they want. And we have banks that have to follow these rules, and we have these regulatory agencies, but it's always top-down centralized control. and we're trying to build something different, right? That doesn't require, there's going to be centralizing security features for sure. That's just like the nature of the beast, unfortunately. But hopefully those would be controlled by the community, right? This is like the what if somebody accidentally sends, like, have you guys heard of Mulek DAO? Mulek DAO? No, a little bit. So it's this DAO in Ethereum that
like a contract as a cooperative.
I would call it like a foundation. It's like a decentralized foundation where their mission is generally to promote Ethereum, right? So a bunch of Ethereum whales throw in a bunch of money and it's a donation, but they get to, it's a DAO. It's a smart contract, and they get to control how that money is spent. Well, somebody accidentally sent 100 Ether to the contract, and they didn't have a way to get it out. So it's just gone forever, right? And that kind of stuff sucks. 100 Ether, dude, that's not chump change, $80 is 180,000, or sorry, 18,000 US dollars. There's this the details are basically there's this approve system, if you want a contract to react to sending a token, first you approve that contract to take the token out of your wallet, and then you push a button in the you actually send a transaction to the contract, and then the contract takes the money out of your wallet. Well, someone forgot about that, or they didn't know. They're just an investor guy. They don't use Ethereum. They're not used to it. And they just sent the token to the contract. And because the token is actually wrapped Ether. There's all these technical things, but basically they just sent money to the contract, and there was no escape hatch to get the money out. I actually think we should have escape hatches.
So this you can compare this to, like, if you lose your credit card, you don't lose all your money. You call your bank. It's centralized, but they give you another credit card. This is easy. In the crypto space today, if you send your 100 Ether to the wrong place without any centralized security features, your money is gone. So this is something we need to address when we go mainstream with this stuff, because there needs to be a way that you can call someone, or some way to get your money back in the case of a screw up. Otherwise, we can't really expect people to be transferring their livelihoods. If you lose one key, your whole life savings are gone. That's just not good user experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. You were. It's not necessarily about this topic, but I noticed that you are absolutely certain that that's a good idea, right? So it seems to be that you're sort of importing this model from current user experience design that comes from centralized systems, and then we transpose that into a new thing. Whereas it could actually be that maybe people just have to get used to the fact that they now actually have their private key, and we make it a bit easier to manage that thing, but and maybe have some safeguards and whatever. And of course, some projects are doing that, but ultimately, if there's that safety hatch, that is a central point of failure, and you could see at some point it's going to be abused. Right, so is it not an invitation for people that want to work on decentralized systems, that want to have the privilege of having unconfiscatable assets and funding whatever they want without being regulated? There's one thing you have to handle. It's this thing with these keys and addresses,
So this just depends on your design requirements, right? And what problems are you trying to solve? If you're trying to build orphanages in Thailand, paying somebody to manage the escape hatch that's just a nice thing to do for the community that you're providing. If you're instead trying to have a revolution in Hong Kong, right, you might need to avoid having that safety hatch, because that's a centralized point of failure that they might have some kind of power that might be a problem. And so
it's about whom you piss off.
Yeah, and what is your purpose? We're trying to build microeconomies that support public funding. We're not trying to build DeFi products or global currencies. Our goal is to keep governance small. We believe in polycentric governance, focused governance over a certain common good. And we don't need one giant global government to like control everything. We need in our designs or what we're building, we want to see just like a small government of experts that are with aligned incentives to provide value for society in this one small way. We don't want it to grow big. And so like, because we're just talking about a group of, you know, mostly known people probably trying to do good for society, put up the safety rails, you know, the little safety nets here, there. We're not worried about the SEC coming in. If the SEC comes and attacks like people building orphanages in Thailand, man, like what is going on? You know, like, yeah, that's just not, they keep going after EOS and Telegram, you know, they got billions of dollars. So like, it's all about what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think there are also like certain ways you can come about it, not trying to replicate the centralized security systems with the obvious points of failure, but introducing, for example, like social backups. So you lose your key, well, you have 5 trusted friends and it's a 3 of 5 key recovery. You know, you call your friends, you say, hey, I lost my phone, or hey, I'm in Thailand and I got pickpocketed. Oh man, my key is gone. Like we just can't say, you know, you lose your key, too bad, tough luck, that's your life savings. It's just not a feasible way to move forward with this. But you can have all sorts of like, and different levels of security as well. So you have a 3 of 5 social backup, you have biometrics, but this is also a service provided by the decentralized community, not saying that a centralized entity has control of it, that it's a backup provided by the decentralized community to have that kind of security.
So technically it could be built into the governance model, kind of.
Right. And that's the modular approach that we're taking as well, is that we're not saying like this is it. We're saying this is like a common framework on which you can add all of that functionality. Each of those security functionalities could be a different component in the common stack that you could plug into your augmented bonding curve, to your governance mechanism of choice, and plug all that in, simulate it, see where the attack vectors exist, and design mechanisms to protect against those before you launch your code and into a test environment.
Just one to add a point to the question, or to the novelty that modeling brings, or that blockchain economies have, that you can, and with the one-sided market even better, because you don't have to think of buyers and sellers, right? In the current system, that is macroeconomics. The whole academic discipline of macroeconomics tries to figure out how large economic patterns fit together, but then they struggle with unclarities. They are not able to, or very often are not able to prognose correctly, because there's so many unknowns, and blockchain really reduces these unknowns to, and bonding curves even more reduce these unknowns, like starts from how much cash is being lost forever because it burned, or it's just, you know, dug in the ground and someone forgot where it is. And these are things that we don't know, and many other things that we don't know currently, and with blockchain that's easier.
Can I just ask something? I mean, it's not now related to this, but like, should we make like a 5-minute break for people to be able to go to the toilet, maybe? Because I got some messages, and then maybe this will be. Huh? Are you up?
Are we closed on the curve, or is that?
No, totally. I want to continue with this.
Okay.
Do you have enough time?
Completely up to you guys.
Do you have time?
We can. This is all we do all day.
I would love to finally learn and understand. And honestly, we have this problem also already in the community. It's like people say, like, why don't you grow this more? Why don't you promote it more? It's a decentralized community. I don't want to grow it more. It's just like giving opportunity for anyone to do whatever they want with this. So maybe to have some kind of decentralized ways of funding is something that we need, actually.
Oh yeah.
So should we make like 10 minutes?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Is someone? No, it's fine. Is someone else talking though?
Later we have Dave and Boki, but from remote.
Boki?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we just.
Seven was saying the Boki's an Australian Ethereum dev.
The guy.
Yeah, he's actually part of the White Hat group. He helped me like return money in the DAO and all sorts of stuff. But the Australian ambassador is coming to Chiang Mai.
Really?
What's the details on that?
Yeah, so the Australian ambassador is coming to Chiang Mai, and he asked I think an assistant of his asked me, like, do you know any Australians in Chiang Mai? Because the ambassador wants to talk to Australian digital nomads who work with crypto, or like
so
both.
funny. Didn't they prohibit crypto and stuff? Are they like
This is what Griff just mentioned. Like, there's all these, I know all these people, and they don't want to talk to the ambassador.
Yeah. They don't want to talk to the government because they can go to jail.
Why would they come here and want to learn about crypto if they
Maybe because
Ambassadors are
all
often
of their
big
Australian
Yeah.
tech people are leaving and they want to find out
who they are?
why, if they can change it.
Like, I think it would be an interesting conversation to have, but of course I'm not Australian, so
I mean, I could pretend to be Australian.
Well, he would be onto that.
Oh yeah. I've been to Australia. I could make some claims.
We do have to meet that guy at 4:30.
Okay.
Really? Oh fuck.
Here.
I'm leaving.
But
I'll
wait.
see you next time.
Bye, Stefan.
Yeah.
Really?
Thanks for the presentation. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, I mean, sorry for the squeeziness.
Oh, it was cozy. It was good. No problem.
I was standing like half an hour, but
See you all later.
See you on Thursday.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Stefan runs the Cube Center.
Yeah.
I guess that.
But I didn't know before he came, so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, some nice guy.
I just
came.
ran into him at a restaurant. I was like, dude, you should come. Yeah.
But it's cool because now he could hear the story. One question: do you have like a meeting with this person at 4:30?
I'm just buying crypto or selling crypto and buying bot.
Because Boki is also tuning in at 4:30.
Cool. I love Boki.
Yeah, me too.
Should I stop this for this time or for the time of
Yeah, we
the
can
break?
make a break.
But I don't know how. Why doesn't it?
I wouldn't. I would just leave it.
Oh,
Run
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Like it's too many
Too much
problems.
work.
Too much work.
But I
and-
have to also jump to the toilet. I drank like the whole coffee shit.
Oh, that's a Jupyter book? No.
Yeah, it's a Jupyter notebook. It's really easy to do these simulations, man. And if you make it for
Can I have that on Google?
Yeah,
Oh,
you can run it on Google.
Oh, not bad. Didn't know.
I didn't know either. We just discovered this. Like we were literally like, fuck, let's just because we couldn't figure out a good server architecture to actually make it because it's a simulation. It takes a lot of computation to do these things.
How long does it take to run one?
Google makes it about 2 minutes. I mean, you can run it on your own computer. And so we were going to create an executable and just like let people download it. Oh, you know what? I should get out before other people come in. So I need to be by the door for a second. A girlfriend went to buy some silk, you know?
Oh, yeah.
No, not money. No, it wasn't that bad.
Are they going to continue on the body curve?
Yeah, until Loki comes.
Yeah. I'm just thinking it's.
But we were going to actually create like a downloadable file so people could just run the simulation on their own computer. But then it became like, then we found out that you can Google will just run the computations for free. It's like, oh my God, yes. We'll just put that in the back end of our website and make it so people can run CatCat on their own computer. If they log into it.
So, wait, CatCat is called, is it like in the Jupyter notebook?
Well, CatCat is in that Google computation thing. CatCat, the CatCat engine is built in.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know. That sounds great.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, honestly.
Is it open source, CatCat?
Yeah, we open sourced it.
And what is it?
CatCat.org.
And it's an amazing tool. It's the only open source crypto economic simulator that exists, obviously.
Alright.
And everyone else is rolling their own. You know, like if you're a serious project like MakerDAO or Ethereum 2.0, right? They're building their own simulation software, and that's great. Like, of course, I'm glad they're simulating. But how does anyone else actually see what their simulations are and run them and understand it? If we can create like a standardization, like one tool that's open source that everyone knows how to use and understands the flow, people can actually do their own self-audit of the thing. They can even fork the Ethereum 2.0 simulation. Like, what if you did this?
Is it written in Python?
Yeah. CAD. I don't know if CAD's running Python.
But it exists on the Python stack. I don't know what it's written in, but
Is it a JavaScript version too?
No.
No.
It's a lot of math, a lot of differential equations, and JavaScript sucks at that stuff.
All right.
Python is definitely the math language, you know.
Is there like a WebAssembly version?
I don't think so.
No.
Because then you could run in the browser.
Yeah. No. That's the problem, dude. It's too heavy.
It's too heavy.
It's
But you said
way
it's
too
recorded. It runs for 2 minutes. Wait, for 2 minutes on what?
On Google's massive service.
So not on a laptop.
On a laptop too, it's about the same. I think Google must be giving you about the same thing.
So then you could run it in the browser. Maybe it takes 5 minutes or whatever.
and I mean that also depends. Like we're talking conviction 3, you can do very, very like it's basically holding like relational graph databases around like a bunch of different things. When you're running Monte Carlo analyses and parameter sweeps on thousands of different options, it can really start chewing up into some massive computations.
But maybe you could do a quick simulation in the browser, and then you have this extra option to use what do they have? The Golem or whatever they have.
Yeah.
To run it somewhere.
So the problem is that CAD is relatively new, and we haven't built the backend to handle like that kind of complex architecture that would. And I say block science. Block science they're the heroes for sure. We're just like promoting them.
So actually a large portion of the funds that we are raising in the Common Stack are going to block science to continue developing CAD as a tool. So we want all of that functionality. It's just no one has like basically funded this software. It came out of block science like on their own dime.
Yeah.
Okay, so and we're basically trying to fundraise for further development of this tool to be useful in all of these different ways.
Yeah,
sounds super cool.
That's a problem, right? Open source, there's no business model for open source. Like that either you close source a piece and create a business out of it, or
we need to research to fund it, but you need to first fund it to research.
Yeah. But this is the cool thing with the Common Stack, we can actually create an aligned incentive for supporting these things. And we can create a system. I mean, like, it's a little complex, clearly.
Yeah.
But like the power of it is that you can make a potential reward for contributing to societal value. You know, that's
true. So, can I ask one question about Curve?
Yeah.
Like, you guys were saying like how you protect the last token holder is by he has the whole control of the funding. What's that called? Funding pool. Yeah. So that also means if the funding pool is empty, then there's no protection on the like last.
Yeah, but every time someone sells, money goes to the funding pool. So as people exit, funding pool goes up, and so the token price goes down, and the token supply goes down.
But the funding
pool goes up.
What's the funding pool like physically?
What is it?
What is it?
Like DAI, you mean, or
the DAI in the contract, like the one that they can use.
The token holders can vote, and there's kind of a cultural mission that says, you know, what the purpose of the commons is. If it's WizardAmigos, then the cultural purpose would be, hey, we're going to fund WizardAmigos and code camps for cyber nomads, and you know, anyone could apply and say, hey, it's like a decentralized grant.
So we just still 6.
Look.
Yes.
Do we have this?
So it's basically a
But I
decentralized grant.
asked him, would you write to Dave and to Tokin if we can on Twitter?
Can you write it to you?
Okay. But we are on Thursday. We have a peer-to-peer database. If you're interested.
Yeah. Decentralized storage systems.
You can see on Meetup. Yeah.
I would like to join the crypto related.
Okay.
All right.
That one is not so much.
I mean, it's still
Thank you.
using cryptography.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.
We present that talk maybe too.
We can
Because
see.
then we have a crypto.
I mean, but people are maybe more like really in crypto.
Yeah, this is crypto.
Yeah. Then crypto, yeah. Do we just continue or do we? No, we wait for Griff.
I think. Well, Griff has to run and meet that other person. So I mean, we can continue and if he comes back after.
We have time basically just until 6. So this is, but now it's what? Now it's 4:30?
Is it 4:30? Then we have to talk to Poki.
Yeah,
It's 4:20. So you have about
all right.
7 minutes.
Here we go. So maybe we can say, do you think if we have the topic till 5?
Yeah, I mean, if Bucky comes and wants to chat before then, that's cool. But I'm happy to chat as long as you guys have the time.
I'm totally interested, but now just because before we didn't know how much time you have, so
Mhm.
then we'll start.
Yeah.
But we can also ask them because it's remote. If we can do it also like maybe online tomorrow or something.
Okay.
Just ask how flexible they are.
I think Zaki is a teacher maybe.
Yeah, but then just ask if maybe we can switch it to tomorrow or next week.
So yeah, I guess a good continuation for the bonding curve is to actually show the simulator working. So you can see how when we play with some of these parameters, it changes the shape of the curve. And this is all based on the mathematics of the augmented bonding curve, which again are not necessarily the only way to do it. This is just one, some mechanisms applied to token bonding curves, but you can see when you can determine the hatch price, the post-hatch price, how much the exit tribute will be. This is basically your tax back into the community, how long you want tokens vested for. So I mean, we can set that for a year, but this is basically just initialization conditions for your community. And when you run the simulation, the green line is the price of the token. And of course, this isn't predictive. This is just agent-based modeling. So when you run it, it may come out different times. So the green price is the price of the token. So you can see that the price of the token right around here does drop back to the post-hatch price or even slightly below. And that can definitely happen. I mean, these aren't magic money generating machines. It does look like a normal market. So it's not, a bonding curve looks like this. And a lot of people think that means it just goes up in price over time. But as people buy and sell, you're actually moving up and down the curve, and you end up with a market that looks much more like traditional financial markets. So here actually is one great example where the token price drops far below your post-hatch price. And this could happen in scenarios where, let's say, WizardAmigos, maybe Nina and Alex get sick and the community, gets really quiet and isn't producing a lot of value, So in that scenario, maybe the price of that token goes down. People aren't seeing the return from the community they've invested in. So the price of that token may go down. But even though the price of that token has dropped below the post-hatch price, you can see the blue line is the amount of funds that's accumulating in the funding pool. So even though this token price has dropped, there's still funds accumulating in the funding pool that can be used. Perhaps someone else picks up the flag and says, hey, like Nina and Alex are sick and I really want to, bring back the WizardAmigos. We have this funding pool. Let's start up these meetups again. So it really helps to align the incentives of people within that community to use the funding pool to drive more value into that community. And you can see, so I mean, we've also put in other protections. This yellow line is actually the floor price. So for everyone who comes into the hatch, you got your tokens at, say, 10 cents, and post-hatch they were worth 30 cents. Well, we want to make sure that people aren't going to just take their, your tokens just went from 10 cents to 30 cents overnight. If you were, just wanting to sell those and take all your profit and leave, that would be very damaging to the community. So we have basically a vesting curve. So you can't sell as an initial community member who participated in the hatch. You actually have to wait a 2-month period before you can sell any tokens. And even then, your tokens only vest on a curve. So you don't get all your tokens at once. So you can't say, okay, I'm going to be part of the hatching community of the WizardAmigos. Yeah.
Why do you have to wait 2 months? Like, why can I sell to one?
Well, it can be.
I understand it might hurt a lot of projects, but some might want it.
I mean, each community that uses the augmented bonding curve can decide their own vesting curve. So we're not saying it's 2 months for everybody. We're saying in our system, this was a good amount of time to allow, because if you don't allow anybody to sell off the bat, then the price will not drop below 30 cents per token in that initial conditions. But now you're introducing this this new asset onto an open market, and people could buy that knowing that it's not going to go below 30 cents. So you're also inviting a broader community to come in and lend capital to your community by buying your token. Maybe the price of that token will go up, maybe they'll sell. So you're also taking advantage of speculation in these markets, because people may want to say, hey, I believe, you know, WizardAmigos is a good community, and I also know that nobody can sell this token for 2 months, so I'm going to buy it at 30 cents. Maybe it'll go up to 35 or 40. I'll sell a little bit, take some profit for myself as a speculator, but also pay this exit tribute into the WizardAmigos community. So you're aligning incentives, and you're inviting speculators to join your community and lend their capital, but you're also making sure that you are taxing those potential gains and feeding that into the community. So this is where that continuous funding comes from.
And you want to do vesting. Like, that's about alignment of incentives, because you have, if you have 10 cents, you know, if people are buying tokens at 10 cents and they can sell them at 30, you're just going to get a giant pump and dump.
That's what I do. Sorry.
Yeah. So and actually what's funny is one of the things that we're implementing also more on the cultural side is to keep people like you out, because it's not about pump and dump. It's about the actual mission. We're trying to create more powerful charities, basically, right? So we're trying to allow WizardAmigos to raise capital just like Amazon did, where they can actually like create a token, but Jeff Bezos wasn't able to pump and dump his token either, right? There's good reasons the SEC has like a gatekeeper role, and that's because people can issue dangerous assets that can be used to scam good people out of money and not actually provide value for society. And so like I think there's way too much of internal learnings happening in crypto, and I think vesting is pretty obvious.
I can also tell you about the other side of the world. Sometimes you do have vesting, which is unnecessary, and then something happened to the project, and you want to go out.
Yeah.
And you got your own reasons because it changed, and you can, because there was this vesting, and it's also some sort of a scam.
Well, and in that case, the people who participate in the project and have the vesting end up failing, right? Like a failed startup. And so that aligns incentives. We're not going to be able to create systems where everybody wins all the time. You know,
I'm just saying there's two sides to the coin.
Of course, but the main goal is to align incentives so that, like, yeah, you're vested, and so now you're incentivized to make sure this economy is a success, and because if not, you lose.
Yeah. So that's the simulation tool. You can play with it on our GitHub or on abcdemo.commonstack.org. And I thought, were there any other questions on the bonding curve? I can also walk you guys through the CAD notebook or the Jupyter notebook that we have that kind of shows some of the CAD modeling we've done around the common stack. It doesn't have to go into specific details, but just to show some of the modeling that we've done in terms of like choosing the parameters. You can kind of use various tools like heat maps. The way that we define these systems, we use a lot of natural force equations. So actually the way that, which one is this exactly? Yeah, but we use the electron repulsion mathematics to determine.
Are you talking about the neurons firing piece?
No, that's a bit lower.
This is a trigger function math.
Which one, sorry?
The video is not recording well. The screen.
Hold it, bring it closer.
Yeah, so you can see, so basically within CAD we can define networks of participants, and everything in CAD is a graph. So you've got nodes and edges, and this is the graph of participants in the network, and the connections between participants are influence. So if I think that one proposal should go through and I have influence over you because you respect my opinion, then you can kind of draw these social dynamics. So this isn't just technical modeling. You can also use behavioral models and program, influence between these. You can also, between proposals, there may be conflicts. So this is just a very basic proposal graph. So there are 3 proposals, but this can also show connections between proposals. For example, if WizardAmigos puts forward, or Nina puts forward a proposal to have lunch here, and I put forward a proposal to have lunch somewhere else, well, those proposals are actually somewhat in conflict because we're both proposing a different place. So you have connections between the proposals as well. So you have various graph databases of the participants as well as the proposals. You can define your initial token distributions. This graph here is talking about what we mentioned earlier about the private preferences of participants. So here you can see participant 0 through 60 or 1 through 60. And there are 3 proposals, 62, 60, 61, 62. And each of these colors is basically how much they like or dislike that proposal. So this isn't necessarily information that is on the chain. This is a private agent preference for a particular proposal. And this is just an initial assumption that we're baking into the system. So like, let's take participant 0, he feels pretty ambivalent about all 3 proposals, as opposed to participant 1 does not like proposal 1 or 3, but proposal 2 he's in favor of. So this is basically building in behavioral models into this kind of simulation, so we can so these agents can act like real people, basically. And if we go down a little bit, so we can get some outputs on how the system will behave. I'm not sure if this actually ran all the way to the end. Maybe it did not. I don't know. Oh, yeah, okay. And then we can see how the proposals work. So we can see this is actually taking it a step beyond the augmented bonding curve. So the first step in the common stack is a communal pool of funding. Then the next step is using that funding to pass proposals. So once we have a pool of funds, Nina can say, I want to use it to rent this space. I can say, I want to use it to hire a developer, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone can put proposals forward to this community. And with our tokens that we now have, the WizardAmigo token, we can vote on those proposals. And we can see this is basically a simulation of what happens when multiple proposals are launched. So you can see on this graph here, these are proposals that have been proposed. Green is completed, orange is active. So we can basically have a model of various proposals throughout their life cycle of being proposed, being accepted, and being voted upon.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, of course.
Regarding these votings, do you vote? Do you vote with your coins? I mean, with your tokens, in the sense that like how much tokens you have, that much voice you have, or do you spend the tokens when you vote so that you cannot forever outvote others if you have a lot of tokens?
So this is going a bit beyond the augmented bonding curve for sure, and we won't get all the way through conviction voting. This is basically a new kind of governance mechanism. So today in most DAOs you have, did you want to, okay. In most DAOs today you have token weighted voting. So in a DAO, in Moloch DAO, which Griff mentioned earlier, it's very much a similar process. There's a communal pool of funds, people put forward proposals, and then people vote in a time box session. So maybe the vote is from Wednesday to Friday, and token holders can go in and vote. They don't lose their tokens, they just vote with them. And then the proposal passes or fails. With conviction voting, rather than saying this proposal is being voted on from Wednesday to Friday, we say this proposal is tabled. All of the proposals are on the table at once, and you are continuously expressing your preference towards which ones you want to see happen. So you said we should go to lunch here. I said we should hire a developer. Alex says we should get a new computer for better presentations. Okay, so all of these proposals are now on the table, and everyone can continuously exert their preference. So it's not even really voting anymore. It's more signaling. So you can, I have 1,000 tokens, you have 10,000 tokens. So obviously your weight will have more clout with that. But the important thing with conviction voting is when you exert your preference, the weight of that, the conviction of that grows with time on a curve as well. So this is similar to how a neuron works in the brain. So when a neuron fires, there's actually an action potential that grows. And when it hits a certain threshold, the neuron fires. And this is how like our brain as a network of neurons operates. So you have an action potential growing, and when it hits a threshold, it fires, and that neuron is active. So we're basically treating proposals that way as well. So if there is a lot of support for let's go to lunch here, the aggregated support of the community will grow with time to a certain point at which the proposal fires, the funds are dispersed, and that proposal is now active. So that's how we're trying to change the time-boxed decision-making of DAOs today into a continuous process where we can actually gain real-time signaling from our community as to the direction they want to move. So we don't have to have votes every 4 years or even every week, but all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't go so deep into this, but like once we were brainstorming about like if we had some governance in WizardAmigos, how would we want to have it? And then this seniority is usually a problem because if you're first in and you have the biggest voting power, then you can always outvote. So why, but markets, how they work is like you vote with your money, but you lose it because you give it to somebody else. So in this sense, we were thinking that it would be nice to pass this money or these tokens to somebody else, and then this person now can do something, and then with these tokens they can vote. I mean, this would be probably governance tokens or governance something, but yeah, this was the idea. So yeah.
For sure. And I think there's a lot of ways to basically balance out large token holders. You can do quadratic voting with conviction voting as well. If you've heard of quadratic voting, it's something that the radical exchange movement is really pushing forward. So they're trying to balance the minority interests. So basically, if you have 10,000 tokens and I have 1,000 tokens, you don't have 10 times as much power as I do. It's actually on a quadratic curve. So if I put in 1 vote, it costs me 1 token, but if you put in 2 votes, it costs you 4 tokens. If you put in 3 votes, it costs you 9 tokens. So you can have a higher say, but it costs you a lot more. So you can do all sorts of different, this is more mechanisms. Again, we're trying to keep this very simple off the bat, but you could align the minority power with something like quadratic voting or quadratic funding. So there are definitely, or more complex. I mean, quadratic is a very basic X squared mechanism or function, but you could get to dynamically adjusting curves to ensure that new people to the community are valued as well. And it's not just value capture by the person that was there first, because that's a big problem in the crypto space today in general. Any other questions about that so far? I can explain a few more of these charts, and I guess we have a few more minutes. So this is basically conviction voting in action. So along the left-hand side here, these are all token holders. The bigger the dot, the more tokens they have. So we're not assuming that it's an equal distribution. Some people have more say than others. And these lines are exerting their preference on the proposals on the right. So you can see there are multiple proposals, and the one at the bottom has a lot of interest. The one at the top has very little interest. And then as time goes on, you can see those accumulating conviction. So as time goes, the aggregated community preference is growing the preference for these proposals. And at a certain point, they pass and become active. And let's see here, what else do we have? So yeah, so I mean, you can do a whole lot with CAD, especially if you are, it's built on the Python stack, so you can take advantage of the mathematical foundation and the data science stack as well. So you can do a whole lot with this tool. We have definitely been keeping it very minimum viable product because we don't want to overcomplicate in the beginning. It's already quite a mouthful to explain all of the things that we're working on. But the whole point is, with the modular engineering approach, we can add in mechanisms to protect against any of those issues that can come up throughout when we launch these systems. And of course, they're very contextualized to each use case. So it may be very different for WizardAmigos than it would be for Giveth, than it would be for orphanages in Thailand. And that's the whole point, is that they can choose from this library what they want to implement.
Do you plan like the contract templates so that like you can choose based on what kind of organization you have?
Yeah. So I mean, our end goal will be a component library. And I mean, this could go beyond Ethereum for sure. We would love to see token engineering spread to all, protocols. I think with our connections with the Ethereum community and the incredible developer power in the Ethereum community, it would probably start first here. And we would love to see, easily forkable, customizable components that you can take off the shelf. You can take your governance component, whether it's conviction voting or something else. You can take your funding component, whether that's the augmented bonding curve or something else. You can take, we have a proposal system, which is basically the Giveth donation app, or a refactored Giveth DApp, and combine them, put them into CAD, see how it behaves under certain scenarios, customize your parameters for your specific use case, run all your simulations and Monte Carlo analyses, make sure that you're, as Griff mentioned, validating your design. And then you can go to code and sandbox and test these on test nets and live environments once you've done all of that engineering validation beforehand.
One more question. The token would be based on Ethereum, or are there other platforms where you can build your own tokens? Because the model that you're describing sounds similar to me, like a Substrate is trying to do with blockchains. It's also like very modular. You can decide what kind of a blockchain you want, but here is like what kind of a token you want practically. But yeah. I don't know, I just know ERC20 tokens, and I know that they are basically based on Ethereum. Okay, you have other tokens too, but they're all based on Ethereum. But I don't know, is there any other platform that enables that?
I think that would definitely be a design spec question. You could probably do it on multiple different platforms. I think we're looking at like XDAI, at least for start. But I mean, that's very up to things may change in the next 6 months. It'll really depend. And that's the great thing about this, is it's chain agnostic. It could be done on ERC20. It could be using DAI. It could be on Substrate or any other chain. So it could be cool. Any other questions? Cool. Sorry for your brains. That I know it's a lot to absorb in one sitting, so.
Oh, so this is over.
I mean, yeah,
Then we have questions. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I'll share all the links in the Telegram group if you're in there, so I can send you some stuff on the bonding curve. I'll send you some stuff on conviction voting. And I mean, some of our articles too. If you're into the math, you can really dig into the math behind the bonding curve. We have some, I mean, it's pretty in-depth stuff for sure. But if that's your bent, we need more people looking at those things as well, definitely.
What is your model for making money?
We don't have one. No. So, I mean, we're producing open source public goods, right? We are producing these components for any project to use. We don't see it as a revenue model for us. What we're trying to do is align incentives for these communities. So, I mean, if you are participating in a lot of bonding curves early, this can be lucrative, right? That's not saying that all of those communities that launch a bonding curve will succeed. Probably a lot will fail, especially in the early days. So there is the opportunity to participate in a new type of economic asset, which could pay off. And it could, I mean, it may provide capital to public goods that are really underserved in this world. So, I mean, the long-term vision of this, right now, if you have spare money sitting around, you might invest in Google, you might invest in Amazon, you might invest in Microsoft, trusting that these companies are going to grow the value of your investment. what if we could also invest in climate change? What if we could invest in child education? What if we could invest in cleaning up trash? As an open community, an open global community of people who are directly incentivized to deliver these outcomes. So this is what, like, my long-term dream of this and vision of this is opening up, different ways that we can aggregate capital pools towards solving our biggest problems rather than just towards creating more products.
But maybe just like, I don't know, you're not from the Ethereum ecosystem, but you're from the blockchain ecosystem. I don't know if it works the same in other ecosystems, but here is like a lot of grants. So if you start a project that is maybe not like a business, but it's a public good, you can at the beginning at least apply for a grant. And in the Ethereum ecosystem, yeah, and also like Substrate, they have Web3.
Actually, I wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah.
It will be later.
But yeah, you can apply basically for a grant, and this helps you kickstart the project. And then hopefully you have some model. I mean, maybe you will be the user. Yeah, your community will be a user of.
For sure. Right. We definitely plan on using these mechanisms to provide funding for ourselves. We would love. It doesn't exist yet, right? It's the chicken and the egg thing, right? If this augmented bonding curve tool existed, we would definitely use an augmented bonding curve to create continuous funding for ourselves. But we have to build it first. So this is where we're pursuing more traditional, like we're looking at grants, we're looking at personal investments from, philanthropists in the space who want to see these kinds of tools, because once we have this tool, everyone can use it to make it just a little bit easier for ourselves. It's not saying that the bonding curve will provide all the funding you need, but it's a small income stream. It's something. And then we can add in maybe subscriptions, or we can add in a Harburger tax based on value produced by this community, which is another kind of rabbit hole all on its own. But there are multiple mechanisms you can kind of add on to this kind of structure to provide different funding streams and essentially move away from having to rely on 100% grants and donations, because that's just a massive opportunity cost for people working to provide public goods. So.
Do you have more questions? Anyone else?
Cool.
Okay, then we can maybe go to the next one.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you very much. So now we have basically a remote guest from one from Australia and one from Malaysia, from Kuala Lumpur. So we have to figure out how to do this now.
We could start with Dave.
Okay. But let me just see.
It may not work out.
Maybe we can also show to Dave who is looking, who's watching, so that he knows to whom he will talk. So you will connect over Tokin, and then he can, yes, and then you will share. Okay. You have the cable, yeah. But I hope we will be able to hear him.
Jeff. Yeah, it's a really like kind of niche spot of the blockchain space. I think it's going to be.
But the planning is a putting into place right now, research.
Yeah.
I mean, there's already token bonding curves out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think Aragon has it.
Mm-hmm. Aragon fundraising, yeah. Oh. And Bancor is a bonding curve. Uniswap, very similar.
How was it
also. The added research is for looking at the economy, so looking at like for the
you should use
around like secondary markets.
Yeah, so I mean,
so you also
why not launch a product right now? The comments, right? So comments is like that ready, deploy as you go.
Yeah. So I mean, the R&D that goes into this kind of stuff is.
We can put the spy here.
Sure. Yeah, the R&D that goes into this is very. I'm not going to speak poorly about any project, but when we launch these systems without appropriate simulation, we don't know our unknown unknowns, and there are lots of financial products out there that are resting on systemic risk compounded by multiple unsimulated technologies existing on top of themselves. You know, we already have very complex derivatives in DeFi, and that's DAI sitting on Ethereum. DAI is also changing out their engine, you know, to a multi-collateral DAI. Ethereum is changing out their engine from proof of work to proof of stake, and like these are economic, like cyber physical systems. Like these are like national power grids, economic power grids. When we have changes in our economic in our national power grids, we have change management processes. Like we use established processes, operations research. There are like multiple fields of protection and like kickback mechanisms and like procedure for doing these things. And at the moment in the blockchain space, no one, it seems, really aware of that. So I would say there's a lot of like systemic risk that is unknown to a lot of the people working in this ecosystem. And that's essentially what we are trying to bring into this, is like when we build national power grids or national economic grids, we need to.
But so my understanding is the curve tries to get rid of the unknowns, but what you're talking about is the unknown unknowns, right? And there's always going to be unknowns. Like you have to find either like a window of, you know, say we're going to do this for 6 months or 1 year, or like you have, what are the metrics that you look at to say we've done enough looking into it before pushing it out?
So, I mean, we're coming at it from an iterative approach. So we want to launch, actually, we're just going into our fundraise right now. We're writing our white paper. We're getting a lot of this organized and looking for funds. So we want to have this augmented bonding curve out in 2020. And we would love for teams to take it, customize it for their use case, and then launch it and experiment with it. We're going to have, you know, feedback obviously into the model. But we're trying to basically create the token engineering framework that people can all experiment in their own ways and build back on a common model. So like Griff mentioned, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Before that, nobody thought harmonic resonance needed to be included in a bridge model. After one experiment, I mean, we didn't have to make that experiment 1,000 times. We only had to make that mistake once. And then harmonic resonance is built into every bridge model since. So this is what we want to do, is create an engineering standard, token engineering standard, on which everybody else can take these tools, model them in CAD, see where they fail in live tests, and then build that back into the model. So everybody doesn't have to make the same mistake. Because right now we don't have a standard. I mean, people are working with simulation tools, but the fact that they have their own in-house simulation tools does not lend itself to true interoperability. So we feel that CAD and the token engineering framework will really bring that to a new level of standardized R&D.
Yeah.
This makes a lot of sense. I think the simulations are key.
Yeah.
And in a way, I mean, the ICOs have like a very negative image currently, but at the beginning when it started, I really liked the idea, because I come from Slovenia, which is a small country, and if you started a business there, it was very hard to get any kind of investment. So I thought I saw this as an opportunity for a lot of startups who want to do something to change something in their country or whatever, but then sadly it was a lot of scammers. So yeah. How do you think that this can also attract scammers? And that I mean, here you have at least community that has to exist first in a way. And it starts first with the internal community putting the money in, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's, Griff mentioned it briefly, but the cultural aspect, the community aspect is really, really, really important. And actually that's one of the first initiatives that we're working on with the Common Stack, is building the trusted seed. And the trusted seed is essentially the core of this early network, these trusted community members that are let in. And every successful crypto network has had, you know, a benevolent community around it, whether it was Satoshi, you know, the Ethereum Foundation, any large network has had this community of people that chose for the health of the network over taking profits at some point. And that got those networks to a sufficient level of decentralization where those communities are less important. So I think that's an essential component in these as well, is community and trust in that initial launching community.
So that you, I mean, it's harder to scam if you first have to build a community and convince some real people instead of just launching a coin and saying like, wow, it will do craziness.
Right.
That's true. Do you have some thoughts? Are you Felix?
Yes.
Okay.
I do think that both for investors that are exclusively interested in making a profit and scammers, there are other more promising options to make money.
I mean, in ICO, they totally jumped on this train.
But an ICO is built.
It's built differently because
it has more dynamics that are an opportunity to scam than this bonding curve. I think at least for honest investors seeking to maximize their return, this is not the thing. This is for investors that also want to do good and maybe also take a little profit or maybe a bit more of a profit, but actually start a movement and maybe make a profit. This is a thing. But for investors only searching to maximize their gains, there are other more conventional means maybe. And I think for scammers also, because you do not have this strong hype potential. It's not built as a hype machine.
It's more like improving on social impact investing, really.
Yeah, I like this idea that basically you do attract investor and they do some gains, but they have to also pay some tax. So if a side effect is that they support a community to grow,
right,
then it's already good.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, we also we look at this as competing with donations. You know, we're not saying if you throw a bonding curve on your community, everyone's going to be rich. We're saying that throw a bonding curve on your community, and then people donate to that community, they may be able to get more than zero back. Like we're against zero. So anything that we can return, if you come back with 10% of your money and supported a community you believe in, that's a 10% win. You know, that's way more than you got as a donation. If you can get 50% back, 100% back, maybe, you know, the people who launched that community get 110% back. You know what? They're now getting paid to do good for the world. Good. These are the incentives we want to align. You know, it's not about people running away with 1,000 extra turns. We're just trying to beat out a complete loss for funding public goods.
I was now thinking like Nora, for example, is organizing WizardAmigos in Taipei for 2 years. And now I was thinking now if she wants to benefit something, she has to also put money in. That's not fair. But then I figured out, no, but maybe people who put the money in would now pay her to do her work because then the value of this is bigger for them.
So she would put in a proposal saying, I'm going to do this work within the community token holders vote, and she does the proposal, she gets paid in the community currency. So she now has a say without having to put money in. Totally.
Cool. Now we have Dave, that's really cool. Maybe people, just mute, let's see. No, but yeah, mute the TV and we can hear it here. And are you? Do you have?
Doesn't matter when you talk, you will hear it.
No, then turn off the Facebook. You don't need Facebook on.
That's why you.
Yes.
Let me try again.
Say without having to put money in.
Cool. Now we can hear it.
No, we're still.
I don't want to listen to myself.
Why are we still on?
Maybe you have like.
Oh, maybe I need to mute my microphone.
No, but.
Okay, we have it.
You have
That's
probably.
tricky.
You have many browsers open probably.
Yeah, but I think I closed all the things. I have Loom, here's no Facebook, it's just this one. And there's also nothing left.
It's nice to see that tech is so struggling with the same
Okay.
Wait.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yay!
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
No.
You can hear us on Facebook.
Delayed.
But no, can you unmute yourself, Alex?
What?
Wait.
Let me see that.
Can you?
Yeah, I'm looking at you.
Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now? Woohoo! Can you hear us, Dave?
Sorry,
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, let me. Yeah, I can hear you.
Woohoo!
Right.
And you can, if you want to see us, you can use the Facebook stream to see us.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Or like turn this camera around.
Doesn't sound very convenient.
He's not so thrilled. You can turn this one around and have
Okay,
a camera on
Where is this one?
for him.
Let's make sure that's not okay.
But turn it around. This is just for
Oh, I
him.
can see it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This
This.
is amazing. Okay. Okay. Where is everybody? Hello. Hello. You can't see me. I'm working. Yeah, anyway. Right. Let's see what we can do.
So that it doesn't take the intro.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
It's breaking a little bit,
But
like
it's
internet
okay.
connection maybe, but hopefully it will
Okay.
work.
Okay, what I would suggest is, okay, okay, if you can turn your sound down and communicate back to me via Telegram, that might be the easiest thing, because I'm getting a bit of, I think that might contribute to the breakup.
Oh, all right. So basically, we're turning switching off our microphone.
And I'm just trying to find you on my, there we go. Okay. Right. I could still hear myself coming back. That's totally weird.
Also off everything that could take the bandwidth.
It's not about the bandwidth. It's the echo that he's getting because we're having a microphone.
Is it no?
Yeah, I can still hear you as well, which is totally weird.
Then we'll
Hang on,
mute
let's
us.
see.
We can mute ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. If you mute yourself until you got the question, I think that might be easy.
Yeah.
And then you can stand by Telegram as well as an alternative,
Can you
right?
turn off everything that
Okay,
is
let's see
bandwidth
what
so
we
that
can do with this.
Everything is off.
So I was asked to do something a little bit more introductory because you've got a range of people attending. And this is actually being totally weird now because I can't get any feedback at all. Shit. Okay, so what I intend to do here is just talk basically about tokens, and it's on an elementary level. Okay, somebody say yes in the Telegram chat if you're happy. Right. So, yeah, we'll ignore that. That was for Griff. Okay, so I'm going to do very basically what, in my view, we're trying to do with the software in general, and what tokens are, and where they can come into it. And at some point, we'll turn on the sound, and I'll also sort of go into some of the dangerous things because there have been a lot of screw-ups regarding particularly ERC20 tokens. So we'll see what tokens are, what they're not. We'll look at the two most common ones, the ERC20, the ERC721, and why you should follow the standards, and what the standards are not complete. I don't define everything. So, a token is basically something which represents something else. Right? So if you go into a casino, they give you a token which you can use to gamble with. The same thing applies if you go to an arcade or if you play Monopoly. You have something that represents something else. In some cases, it actually represents it. In other cases, it represents an imaginary version of it, a virtual version of it. So your casino token represents real money because you can cash it out. The tokens, the game arcade, allow you to spend money without actually spending money. And your Monopoly money, of course, isn't real money. It never becomes real money, and it never was real money. But it allows you to play a simulation of reality. So it can represent all kinds of things. It can give you a turn of the game, add to your game token. It can represent the money, as we said. It can also represent mugs of coffee, votes at a meeting, seats at a concert, and these are all slightly different from each other. And one of the biggest differences is fungibility, right? And I'm sure most of you, or probably all of you, are pretty knowledgeable about this. If something is fungible, there's no difference between any two items. In fact, possibly even, there may not even be an item. It could be infinitely subdividable. Water, for example, two pieces of water, you can add them together. You get one larger piece of water. Then you can add, you can subtract. Now, some things are either fungible or not fungible, depending upon what aspect of them you're looking at. This is where it comes down to what you're modeling in your use of the tokens. So, for example, I've got here 2 Malaysian 50-cent coins, the 1971 and 1969. You could walk into a store and each of them would be worth 50 cents. But if you go to a coin collector, the 1969 one is worth a couple of thousand ringgit. Right? So it depends upon your use case whether something is fungible or not. So the ERC20 token is the thing which everybody claims in some ways for the ERC cryptos, created by Fabian and WizardAmigos. It is a fungible token. It defines some compulsory methods, some optional methods. It is compulsory to be able to transfer tokens. And you have both direct transfer and delegated transfer. Direct transfer is like you get onto, say, my crypto, you just send some ERC20 tokens to someone. Delegated transfer is you want to use an exchange to change your tokens. And so you allow the exchange to spend up to a certain amount of your tokens. It's a little bit like a manager authorizing his secretary or his admin assistant or whoever to spend a certain amount, to spend up to a certain limit every month. You can also obviously find out how many tokens you have, and you can find out how many tokens there are. Now, these are all part of a contract in terms of one contract can inquire or command another contract into it. You also have events, which are absolutely essential to monitor the transfer of tokens and various other things. Some of the things in the ERC20 are not compulsory. So the things which everybody thinks probably are compulsory, like the name, the symbol, the number of decimals, they are not compulsory. Which is kind of weird because somebody lost a lot of money by ignoring the number of decimals recently when they traded DAI for USDT. But you do not need to specify them. But in that, the number of decimals is kind of implied, but not really. Okay, so the ERC721 token is something where you have a whole lot of things where each token is a little bit different from another token. So this is like seats at a concert. Yeah, the seat 16A can only be sold to one person. You can hold tickets for seat 16A, 16B, 16C. So you can define a whole load of attributes.
Dave,
But
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there is like the internet connection is not good. You're breaking the whole time, so I'm wondering if we should try another call, like a Zoom or something, because something is wrong.
Yeah, we can try that. It could just have got crappy internet. Let's try it. Yeah.
Because wait.
Okay.
Do you have Zoom?
Yeah, I have Zoom.
Would you share a link? And we meet there. I mean, because now the video is cool and everything, but like your sound is constantly, and then it's kind of it's a shame.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what we can do.
I'm sorry.
I can hit you by now.
Really, that's really crazy because you were like. We can guess what it is because we see slides, but I'm just wondering if maybe we can.
Maybe that's my voice. It's my voice. Okay. Let me see if I can think. I've never actually shared with them.
No, it's very hard to understand.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry. It was all verbal drug references. It's okay. Where are we? Zoom. Zoom. Oh God! How do I create a meeting?
I think. Wait. I also because I'm on Alex's computer. I can't really. Wait. Zoom. Maybe I will manage. Join a meeting, host a meeting. Okay.
You've got a host. I don't know how to host you.
Do you see it? Host a meeting. Aha. Maybe this is. Did you manage to? Aha. Did you post something?
I posted.
Okay. Sorry.
Did I what?
No. Sorry. Is this the thing? Let me see. If this would be the link to a Zoom, maybe.
Okay, so I will close. I'll close the call and try it.
Yeah. Otherwise, we send another link. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody know how to host a Zoom meeting? Is it this? No, it's not my computer.
You might have to have an account, or actually, you can click their host meeting.
Yeah.
And video on.
No, sign in. Where's Alex? Yay. Does somebody else have? I don't know, but we can't.
I have Zoom, but I don't know what my password is.
Where's Alex? Does anybody see Alex?
Can you try Google? Sign with Google.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, sign with Google.
Since it hasn't started. Where is Alex? Does anybody see him? Shit.
Does he have his Google?
Yeah, but I don't know if he's logged in. Let's see. How do we do Hangout? Or?
Hangout stuff.
That's horrible. If he's logged in. And how do I share this?
So I guess start a call.
Video call. And then you can invite.
Join or start. Yeah.
With an ID. And then can I share? And now he will say I don't have Google or something. Join the meeting and then drop him the link. Is this copy joining info?
That's a straightforward solution.
Okay, so it's always
Not
yet.
so it's getting better, Are you ready?
Oh, okay. Hey. Yoo-hoo.
Well, hello there.
This sounds better actually. I think. I hope.
Yeah, it sounds very good. Now
Cool.
You need a screen sharing, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll mute ourselves again. Thanks. Sorry, because the other one would be just like a torture, and it wouldn't.
What is this one now?
No problem.
Yeah, this is working. That's so cool. Oh.
Okay, let's see if I can present a window. A window. I've got to click on that first. Oh God.
I know.
How do I?
Right. Bottom right.
Okay, that one. I'm going to share. If I share you and then go back to that, does that look okay?
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will mute and we can go. Thank you.
Well, it's okay. I can hear you now. This one's okay. There's no
Oh,
echo.
really? Okay, then I don't have to mute. That's cool. So
Yeah.
totally
Okay, that's even better. Right. So, you were following me, yeah?
Yeah.
So everyone's happy. There's no rocket science here, because I'm not a rocket scientist, so that's okay. Okay, so 721 represents things where each token is different. You can have a whole load of different tokens. You know, it's a little bit like children. You know, each child is different, but they have similarities. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You can have a whole load of them. Each of them has an ID in most countries. So you can identify the token from the ID. You can find out how many tokens an owner holds. It partially defines how to mint new tokens, but not completely. It does, again, define how you transfer, both directly and delegated, and how you monitor the transfer of the tokens. Right. But the token standards only define the common stuff, right? Anything you like into your token. So a couple of the tokens, I developed 2 tokens for Hello Gold that interact completely. Gold token includes a daily calculated storage fee. So if you have a certain amount of gold today, you won't have the same amount of gold next year, which is exactly the same as if you had it in a vault. Yeah, because you're charged a storage fee on an annual basis and insurance and stuff. We also have a distribution mechanism where we can actually mint tokens which are distributed to a whole lot of people in a single transaction based upon the proportion of another token they have. And all of this is totally is inside ERC20 tokens, but it's like extras to the standard. You can have transfer fees. So you can have it charge Ether or charge a different token in order to transfer them. you can have any kind of administration functions like freezing of tokens. You can have confiscation of tokens if you wanted, which could be perfectly valid inside your use case. And as I said, you can have tokens interacting. There was one game where, I can't remember which one it is, where you have NFTs which are dragons, but to keep them alive, you have to feed them crypto kitties. So I think the most important thing is, for me, that blockchain of all kinds, including Ethereum, is a piece of software, right? You know, in Ethereum, we kind of like, a lot of people have built various movements around it, but at its core, it's a piece of software. And so, the tokens that you create are for a particular use. I know that there were a lot of scam tokens, where the tokens purely existed to make money. But there are also tokens which basically cause interaction between things, like marbles in one of these clever mechanical games. But your ERC20 at its heart represents something fungible. It could represent real world assets. You could use it for financial modeling. At its heart in the code it is really simple. You have a mapping of addresses to some kind of a balance. It's a single entity balance. Now that balance could be a structure, or it could be an integer. 99.99 times, out of 100, it will be integers, because all you're doing is transferring balances. In the GoldX contract, we have a more complicated structure because we both handle the fees and we handle the allocations. But very basically, in order to find your balance, all you have to do is look it up. You put in your address, you get your balance back. In order to transfer, you take out of your balance and you put into someone else's balance. You also have a mapping of allowances, which allows you to delegate, in fact, to delegate other people to spend some of your tokens. But I didn't put that one in here. Your ERC721 has, again, many real world use cases. Hello Kitty, not Hello Kitty, sorry, I have a daughter. CryptoKitties was the first one, that everybody, that like slowed the internet down in the beginning of 2018. But most blockchain games now are based upon ERC721. So you can have 1,000 swords, or characters or whatever, game items. But it's also used in modeling things like real estate contracts, anything real world. You can have loans, artwork, all with ERC721, what we call non-fungible tokens. So you may have recalled that earlier in the year, Materium released a William Shatner Captain Kirk figurine, where each one was identifiable by its own NFT, which was fused into it using an NFC tag. So the uses of these are very, very widespread. It gives you things which are uniquely identifiable. And in this case, here I put balance, but it could be anything. It could be power. It could for a game item, it could be power, speed, anything that you would build relating to that character. And then each time you mint an ERC, you would add it to the balance array. You would put the index into that balance array, and you'd append it to the owner's list of tokens owned. And you put the owner's address at that index position in the owner's array, so that you can cross-reference between the token, which owner has what and who has which token. One of the most important things, as with everything with your tokens, however, if you're building tokens, the first thing is, if you're going to build a token, my strongest recommendation is start off with something like the Zeppelin libraries, because they are well-audited code. They adhere to the standards. If you do not adhere to your standards, things will go wrong. In 2017, a lot of the early tokens followed the BAT, the Brave token standard. The Brave token code. And one of the problems with that was that when you mint tokens, it did not create the standard event. And that caused a massive community support problem, because every time people bought tokens, during an ICO, they went to Etherscan and it didn't tell them they were receiving their tokens. I know someone that created a 721, but they had the wrong transfer function. And because they had the wrong transfer function, Etherscan did not recognize it as a 721. It thought it was an ERC20. Right? If you look on Etherscan, now how am I going to do that? Hang on, are you following you're following my screen in general, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you can see I've got Etherscan open, yes?
Yes.
Wonderful. It's a lot easier than the other one then. So if you look on Etherscan, you can see in here, this is you can see all of the events. The transfer event is a standard ERC20 event. Things like gold allocation are not standard events. Right? So if I look in this transaction, Etherscan says that there were tokens transferred from this address to this address, this number of tokens. Etherscan only knows this because the events are correct. Right? So you have to follow, if you look in the standard, it says this must be done, these should be done. Somewhere in here, we have the standard in here. Right, events must trigger when tokens are transferred, including zero value transfers. Etherscan will look at the event called, the function called, and the event which given off. Tokens were transferred. Right, are you with me?
Yeah, you froze a little bit, but yeah, you were back, so it's perfect.
I must have been nervous. Okay. Okay, so if you look at the transfer function, I'm not going to look at it here, but where are we? Transfer. Somewhere in here, it also says that if you mint tokens, it doesn't say must, but you should create a transfer event from location 0, from address 0 to the recipient of the tokens. if you burn them, you should take it from the owner of the tokens to address 0. Now that also allows Etherscan to figure out what you're doing. And that was the problem we had with BAT and quite a few other tokens that were based on it. Another thing is, of course, you should have your code very carefully audited. And if, you know, like, again, during the ICO craze, there were people who didn't audit their tokens properly. Mistakes were made such as minting functions and burning functions without proper access control, so anybody could mint the tokens. Exit scams, where I assume most people here are Solidity coders, amongst other things. So you know that all the integers are unsigned and there's no overflow, underflow checking. So there was one token called Monero Gold, which was a scam token, where there was a burn function with no overflow checking. And so once the guy had spent a decent amount of money to create liquidity on exchanges, he then burnt a massive amount. He burnt more tokens than he had, which gave him a massive balance. You know, because obviously, you know, if you take away 20 from 15, if it's not a signed number, it gives you a massive number. And then he tried to liquidate quickly. So your code needs to be seriously audited, just like all other code. But in tokens, it's been used for exit scams. There have been all kinds of problems with tokens that were wrongly done. There was a case early 2018 where a whole load of tokens all copied from one token, which had a batch transfer command, which missed in one single place an overflow check that was essential. And somebody was able to call that batch transfer, and again, mint tokens that didn't exist. Right, so where did my notes go? They're over here. Okay. So that's really all I had to like say about tokens. As I say, I was asked to do something very introductory.
Yeah, this was actually pretty cool. I have to say, even though it's introductory, I didn't know I mean, not everything. Like this about Etherscan, that they're actually listening to events it makes sense. But I imagined before that they're just monitoring they're running the node and monitoring the network and fetching data from there somehow.
Yeah, no, well, you can't really do that, because if you did, I mean, they do actually run archive nodes and they trace every single transaction, but they don't really do it. I mean, they may have changed, right? But I think, you know, as time has gone on, they do more and more cross checks. So, for example, you know, the 4-byte database, they actually have their own heuristics to accurately tell you which functions are being called. But, you know, certainly back in 2017, it was all based upon that event. I think. Because the thing is that the events are the fastest way to get the information.
It's true, but you can fake it. You can, you can subscribe to event, but then you propagate something else, or can you?
Yeah. Well, of course you can, but you can do almost anything. Because I mean, you know, it would be impossible for you to do a function which said transfer tokens from me to you, and for it not to actually, you know, think about it. They'd have to emulate everything and try to make sure that we're not transferring tokens to somebody else, and that there are no other functions that would do it. So they have to trust some kind of good behavior on behalf of the tokens.
Yeah. That's
right?
that's why standards are important, because then then you can know what is in the code.
That's our verified source code.
And also verified. I don't know if you know, we started like this movement. I mean, movement started, but like we try to promote it more about verified source codes.
Of course.
Because this is the burning problem in the community. You have to just trust that the bytecode. I mean that this bytecode is actually doing what it's supposed to. So.
Well, I think actually that's this should be part of my advert here. You really should come down to KL, because Ethereum KL is sponsored by Etherscan and Hello Gold.
Oh.
Right? Because I mean, one of the biggest buzzes that I actually got was when we started Hello Gold. We had a whole load of problems that, I mean, anywhere someone doing gold is suspect, right? We're doing gold as a means of financial inclusion, and I discovered that when I discovered that Etherscan is a company based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, it kind of blew my mind.
I didn't know that.
and I tried to get a meeting with Matthew Tan of Etherscan, and for some reason it was incredibly difficult. And I didn't understand why. Let's go to me. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yay! Hooray! Yeah, I'll wave my hat. There you go.
I mean, if you want to make yourself bigger, you can hit stop presenting.
Yeah, you can hit stop presenting, and then you will be full screen.
Oh, lovely! Even better. Yes, let's do that. Okay. So I tried to get a meeting with Matthew Tan, and it was incredibly hard to get a meeting with him. And they were like, well, actually, there were two reasons for this. The first reason was because it was just after the Morden testnet. Was it Morden? Ropsten? No, Ropsten, that was being incredibly spammed. And so he was working very hard to help get Koban up. But also,